from my winter hell. I've got candles and candy, I can be your daddy if you only let me creep into your prison cell. Hey baby, can you tell I'm not a criminal? Your choice is seminal. I want you to stay true to what's right for you. No matter who or know what will others say, just find your way and try to stay true. Speak low, stand in your row, try not to show this life's a show. Try not to glow way down below. Oh, it's a lot of woe, and that's not a place where you would like to go. I've got cigarettes and brandy, which could come in handy if you just help me loosen up my hand grenades fuse. Baby, don't refuse my truth, but it's up to you now to choose. I want you to stay true to what's right for you. No matter who or know what will others say, just find your way and try to stay true. I want you to stay true to what's right for you. No matter who or know what will others say, just find your way and try to stay true, 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 true. Hi, you guys. Good morning. How are you? I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you guys had a good day yesterday. I did. Um, Hang on just a sec. Last night with Allie was super fun. It really was. Um, we went over Lori Vallow Daybell Esquire's shenanigans in the courtroom, and they were aplenty. If you missed that, you might want to check that out if you're trying to keep up with that. Let me say good morning to you guys while we watch the OnlyFan. Oh, Melissa, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that, babe. Thank you for supporting me in the channel. Good morning. Good morning, Music City Mom. Good morning, Humanimal. Good morning, Mrs. Troy. Good morning, Neat Noodle. You guys, if you're a member and if you have the member emojis, Neat. Oh my gosh, I've got one more to upload. I forgot that one. I just remembered. All the synapses just fired. Pardon me. Neat has made the official Karen Reed trial emojis. So please feel free to go and check those out. I'm so grateful she did that. Thank you so much. Again, Neat Noodle. I just really appreciate that. Good morning, Sprinkled Donut. How are you? Good morning, Wolfie. You're late. I know. It's my bad. Good morning, Rachel Lee. I appreciate you hanging in there, Wolfie. I know I don't like tardiness either, and I apologize for that. Good morning, Brandy. It's good to see you. Good morning, Seven Lilies. Good morning, Sarah Bellum. Sarah, we really have got to get together and do that jury service live. We really do. My pl- my plate is really full right now, and it's not that I don't care, and it's not that I don't. I just want you to understand. It's not that I don't care. It's not that I don't appreciate you volunteering and agreeing and even reaching out to remind me. I'm aware of all that, and I'm appreciative of all that. I've just got stuff going on aside from the tubes. So yeah, I just I need to I don't know. I need like a project manager or something, to help keep me in line because I'm out of control. And Wolfie, I know, babe, 3 minutes is too much, which I also know Wolfie is joking. Wolfie it speaks fluent sarcasm, and I love when she comes in here and gives me um, a hard time because it means she cares. I know this. I'm familiar with Wolfie's brand. Oh, wow, congratulations, Sarah says. No worries, it's graduation season and I'm working with my son. Fantastic. Oh, that's amazing. A graduation season. Wow, yeah, it is. Okay, just briefly before I forget, because I will forget, you guys know how I roll. I want to remind you guys that Lori's trial, the actual testimony is tentatively scheduled for June 2nd. Okay. And and their schedule is like the last trial. It's 4 days a week. And it's, obviously it's hold on a minute. It's Arizona time, so it's 2 hours behind Central, 3 hours behind Eastern. So I think what I'm going to do is cover Karen during the day and cover Lori at night. So that's the plan. That's the schedule. It's a lot of bendy. I hope you guys are prepared for all of that because sheesh, it's a lot. Yesterday, when we left off with testimony yesterday, it was Maureen Hartnett who was on the stand. She is an evidence technician with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab. And my favorite defense attorney, Alessi, is cross-examining her. So we will begin with that today whenever they begin. I don't really need to make this that. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, bottom line is that that's what we're going to be watching today. And if you missed any of that, let me just recap for you. Last night, I watched Judy Ron and Ed Wallace discuss this very testimony, both the direct and the cross examination. And what I like about both of them is they're both former law enforcement, but they worked in different capacities. And Ed is very good at really explaining why, in his opinion, which I happen to agree with, the way that the evidence was collected, preserved, and in some instances, even the results interpreted was just a big mess and wrong. And that what he was talking about last night was the fact that um, the way that when she processed some of John O'Keefe's clothing, how she okay, so there was like debris on the pants. There was debris on there was stuff on the shirt, there was stuff on the sweatshirt. And the way that she collected it was she like did scrapings off of that the clothing, but they weren't like the collection of the scrapings wasn't separate, meaning she didn't do scrapings from one item, collect that, package it, preserve it. She did it for all three and put it in the same on the same paper. And the problem with that is when it gets analyzed, okay, how are people going to know? How is the person who actually then processes the evidence further? How and then a report is generated and then that report gets testified to in court. How do they know what came from where? What evidence came from where? And yes, it matters. It matters. Okay, so then there was that. She did not even use an alternative light source to look for fibers, foreign fibers, foreign hair, any of that. She didn't even do a tape collection, which is the very basic, most basic. We all can operate tape, similar to a lint roller. I mean, come on. Um, then we have the magic pieces of glass. First, she would not even acknowledge that the photograph that she took was not actually two separate pieces of glass, but a reflection. Okay. So there was that. Then the glass in and of itself. Okay. The Commonwealth wants us to believe that this is some sort of magic glass wherein Karen backed into John O'Keefe, broke the cocktail glass that he was holding. Some of the glass, which glass does shatter, that's facts. Some of the shattered glass ended up on the rear of her bumper. She drove from 34 Fairview back to Meadows, parked in the garage. Got up the next morning, backed out of that garage, hitting John O'Keefe's car. And I don't give a rat's fat kneecap, Commonwealth, what you tried to say. We all saw that video. Homegirl hit that vehicle. Now, I know that yesterday you presented a picture of that same vehicle. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's correct. But that vehicle had clearly, first of all, it was taken 5 days after 5 days later, and it had been detailed. That car was sitting out in the snow and in the elements, period, the end, and it was detailed. Okay. I don't know if y'all got magic snow in Massachusetts. It somehow miraculously, when it melts off and dries and the water dries from the melting, it doesn't dry with dirt. I'm not sure. You have magic glass, you've got magic snow, you got all the things. Okay. Hit that vehicle. All right, drove all over Hell's Half Acre looking for John. First, she stops over at Carrie Roberts' house, and they go back to Meadow. Okay. Then she drives from Meadow back over to her parents' house, where where her vehicle is then put on a flatbed and driven to Canton Police Department to hang out in the Sallyport. Through all the snow melting, nothing moves.
It's now opening 18.
You are unmuted.
I was told council wanted to see me. Okay.
Maybe they brought, I hope council, when you go and visit Judge Bev up there on the sidebar, you brought her a package of couth because she ain't got any. Interrupting at all times yesterday. She's so rude. And she does it. Here's my thing. Many judges will interject and, when it gets close to the end of the day or it's getting close to lunch or, those types of things, but they don't interrupt the actual question and answer portion. They'll wait for a break and then they'll say, attorney such and such, or excuse, something. Not Bev. Bev busts in the middle of a question like the Kool-Aid man. Just, hey, I want to see it. I want to see the attorneys at sidebar to discuss scheduling. Like, okay, Judge Bev. It's just rude. She's just rude. So yeah. Let me say hi to you guys who have just joined us, because you know me. I do like to say hello. Let's see. I said, hey, non-blonde millennial. Good morning. Good morning, Brandy. Good morning, Julie A. Good morning, Sissy's mom, Jen. Good morning, Violet. How's everybody doing? Mrs. Troy, good morning, good morning. Jen K, good to see you. Hey, Lisa Marie, good to see you. Good morning. All right. I want to acknowledge you guys, because I'm really grateful that you guys, come in here with me, and, your comments during the audacity portion of the trial, which is usually cross-examination. The testimony from the witnesses on cross is full of audacity, doubling down, ego. It's bad news bears all around. And y'all keep me from just completely losing it, and I appreciate that. And in that spirit, I showed this last night, but I want to show you guys this morning, because you know how I go on my rants sometimes. This is what I'm going to start playing after I regroup and collect myself.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
That's my new video for that, because oh, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that so much. Lisa Marie gifted a membership. If you got the membership, I appreciate that so much. Uh-oh, hold the phone. What's a minute? Oh, did she maybe say the word a-hole? Are we talking about the witness? Who? Now I'm a bootleg Hogwarts owl. Who or uttered that? I need to know about that, because I will go and find that. You guys know that I will, and I will play that on break. No shame in my game. But yeah, you guys have kept me from completely losing it. I only lose it a little tiny bit. Oh, they don't know who said it. Do we know when it occurred? The heck? Hold on a minute, you guys. Let me go look at this really quick.
All rise for the court, please.
I don't know what the weather is telling me. Oh, the judge. Oh my. Wow. Judge Bev. Judge Bev. This is what I'm talking about, you guys. Couth. That's what's missing. Judge Bev, where's your couth? Where'd you leave it? Go find it. It's ridiculous. That's not appropriate at all. And when I think of the way Judge Bev conducts herself, okay, so we don't know. Let's put a pin in the a-hole comment. Okay. My opinion of Judge Bev and her lack of couth still stands, particularly when I listened to Judge Bresky in the Lori Vallow Daybell Esquire trial. That's the pretrial hearing that took place yesterday, but just overall with her in general, pretrial all the way to trial, okay, through the trial, and now the second trial. All right, I will go back and independently look at it for myself and make a determination, and then I'll play it for you guys. And hey, Jean, good to see you. And then we'll discuss. Okay. What was I going to say? When I compare their courtroom decorum, yeah, Judge Bev ain't got no couth. I mean, y'all, Lori, first of all, was completely disrespectful. It's one thing to disagree. You are allowed to disagree with a judge. It's the way that you do it. Okay. And it was her attitude was completely stank. And she was this. Let me just show you. Let me show you. This was Lori yesterday. She was so nasty and so rude. It was disgraceful. Really, it was. And even through all of that, and he's human, anybody might lose their temper. Like I'm telling you guys, she was so rude that she moved past Karen and escalated to a Susan, the boss of the Karens. Okay? That's how she was yesterday. It was awful. And but he maintained his composure. Never got sideways with her. And Sissy's mom, I was tired last night too, but I stayed up for you guys to do the commentary, but I was joined by Allie, and that always makes it better. She just makes me laugh, and I really appreciate her. So I hope you really, I think you will really enjoy last night's commentary between the two of us. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Melissa said I replayed that live this morning. You and Allie had me laughing so hard my side started hurting. I'm sorry you were hurting, but I'm glad you laughed because, yeah. Oh, maybe that's what's in those red Solo cups that they never tested. Judge Bev's couth. Violet said maybe they packaged Judge Bev's couth in one of those evidence bags from the Stop and Shop that's mislabeled. Yeah. Hey, Crocheting Bammy, good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So yeah, Susan. Susan, Susan. Yeah. It was fun. I had a good time. I mean, Allie makes me laugh. She really does. And she balances me out because even when she's irritated, she's like a lot calmer than I am. And and so it's not, she's like, she balances me and gets me to dial it back now. Jen, you're at a 15. I'm gonna need you
You are
to
unmuted.
all right, here we go. Yeah, that's true too. Allie started out with the demon. Y'all got to hear it. Bless her little heart. I guess they're gathering up the jurors. Here we go.
All persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Cannoni, Justice of the Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. You may be seated.
Good morning again.
Oh, hey, Nails and Braids by Kim. It has been a long time no see. Welcome back. She says, hi, Jen. Long time no see. I miss you, Alex and Melissa. I haven't watched you guys' show in a while. I miss you guys. Well, we miss you too. I'm glad you're back. It's great to see you. Also, speaking of people who've been MIA, where is MK Leon? MK, you need me to send out a bolo? You all right, bro? Just know you're missed.
Counsel, good morning again, Ms. Reed.
Good morning, jurors.
We thank you for your patience. Once again, we worked out something here this morning rather than having you watch us over at Sapphire. So we appreciate your patience. I do have to ask you those questions. Were you able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? Everyone said no or shook their heads. Thank you. May we have Ms. Hartnett, please?
Nails and Braids by Kim. She says, I really miss the Letitia days. Don't you worry. There's new content. I made a whole playlist. Go check it out. I promise you will not be disappointed.
I'll remind you, you're still under oath.
Yeah, I'm getting
morning.
a little concerned about MK, and I don't want to pry because people have the right to their privacy, but I miss him in our chats.
Go right ahead, Mr. Lessie.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Hartnett, and welcome back this morning.
Good morning.
Your Honor, if I could please have Exhibit 145 that is in evidence
Okay.
Published.
Yes.
Mr. Wolk. Ms. Hartnett, you will recall discussion about the taillight from the Lexus that was discussed on both direct and cross-examination yesterday?
Yes.
And you recall the discussion with regard to the weather that was in existence on or about January 29th. I'm not going to go into it at all. I just want to sort of refresh and reorient to where we were on that topic. You recall that?
Yes.
And I am now going to reference specifically what you referred to yesterday, I believe, as the inner part of the taillight, sometimes the inside of the taillight. Do I have that parlance correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. So my question is, did you find any sand or salt or any other debris in the inside portion of that taillight?
No, I did not.
Now, and you can take that down. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. You recall discussion about shards of taillight? Do you recall that discussion at all in your testimony?
No, I'm sorry, I do not.
Okay. I wasn't certain whether we had that parlance. So my question is, to your knowledge, was there any testing of any taillight alleged to have been found at 34 Fairview for biological material?
No, there was not.
And could you just please state what your definition is, inclusion, when you refer to biological material?
Those items were not processed in the criminalistics unit for any type of biological, meaning they would not tested for blood, semen, saliva, or a skin cell collection.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part that you...
Or a skin cell collection.
Now turning and changing topics. There was a T-shirt and a hoodie of the decedent. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And are you okay with my parlance of T-shirt, the yellow or orange T-shirt on the one hand, and then the gray hoodie sweatshirt? Is that an acceptable parlance for you?
Yes.
So with regard to those two items, if I could, Your Honor, have published what is already in evidence, Exhibit 151 and 150, and Mr. Wolk, if we could please put those side by side. Alrighty, so is it correct that what's on the left is the right sleeve of what we refer to as the hoodie, and on the right is the, what color would you like to call that T-shirt?
Orange, please.
All right, so the orange T-shirt. Is that what we're looking at up on the screen?
Yes, so it's the right sleeve of the gray hoodie and the back of the orange T-shirt.
Thank you. Am I correct that you included a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from each of these two items or from these two items collectively?
I don't handwrite notes on my report, so I'm just confused about where you're asking that.
Okay, I'll ask a different question. Hopefully it will be clear. Did you find debris on either of those two items of clothing?
Yes, I performed a debris collection on each of those items and combined them.
I'm sorry, it's not your fault, it's mine. There's a HVAC noise I can't hear. If you
So
could
can we
speak up
turn
just
the
a
air
little.
conditioning off, please?
I'm okay with
I can
it.
speak
It's
up.
just if
I'm
you could
sorry.
speak up a little. I don't want to
Of course.
discomfort people. Can you move the mic?
Yes, I can speak up. My apologies.
If you could speak a little louder, that'd be great. Thank
Yes.
you. Can you repeat your answer, please?
Can you repeat the question? I apologize.
Sure. Did you find debris on these articles of clothing?
Yes, I took scrapings from each of these items of clothing and combined the debris. Yes.
With regard to scrapings, can you describe how the term scrapings relates to these two items of these two items that are on the screen?
Yes. Scraping is the mechanism I use to remove any debris that was remaining on both the sweatshirt and the t-shirt. I held each up over my lab bench. I took a long metal spatula and scraped any debris that was on these items into a small glassine packet.
Is it correct that you do not know where the debris came from specifically, other than it came from one or both items of both of these two items?
Yes, that's correct.
So the debris could be from just the hoodie, it could be just from the t-shirt, or it could be a combination of the both?
Yes, the items were packaged together, so they were already commingled. So there was no way for me to determine which debris came from which item, and it would be misleading to label them as such, so I combined them.
Exactly where my next point was going to go to, thank you, and my next questions. So what, if anything, were these two items contained in when you got them?
They were contained in a brown paper bag, and they may have been contained in a larger box, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
So when you got them and you saw them for the first time, using your term, they were commingled together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And was there any debris in the bottom of the bag?
There may have been. When I examine something on my bench, I also shake out the bag to ensure that nothing is left behind and that everything is examined and accounted for.
Now, am I also correct that there is no description of the actual debris that you found? For example, you didn't specify whether it was little fibers, little hair, little pieces of this or that. Do I have that correct?
Correct. I did not do any examination on it. I just packaged it.
And therefore, you didn't note whether any of the debris was a plastic or a plasticine nature, correct?
Correct. That would not be part of my analysis.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered. Is that also correct?
I label the debris with an item number. I'm not sure what you mean by marker, if that's what you mean.
Parts of debris, in other words, there wasn't separate identification or markers for separate pieces of debris.
No, I did not separate out the debris.
There was no photograph taken of the debris?
Not by me, no.
Do you have knowledge of whether there was a photograph taken of the debris by anybody?
I do not.
So you have, as you sit here today, you have no knowledge that there's a photograph of the debris.
That's correct. I do not.
When you received the hoodie and the t-shirt that's depicted as 150 and 151, they came in together, commingled with some debris at the bottom in an evidence bag. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if there was debris at the bottom of the bag. What I can say is that there was debris on the items, and I did shake out the bag. I don't have a memory of anything coming out of the bag. I don't know.
So there could have been debris at the bottom of the bag when you shook it out, you just don't recall.
Yes, correct.
If we could, Your Honor, please have Exhibit 154 already in evidence published.
Okay.
And let's keep it there for a moment, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Wolk for you to zoom in. Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize this generally, and then I'm going to have it zoom in so you can read it, as an evidence bag?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Wolk, could you please zoom in, starting from the top, so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read this. And if you could, Ms. Hartnett, just take a moment to read it, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, but I want you to have a fair opportunity to read it. Let me know when you're done.
Okay.
And if we can then scroll down, Mr. Wolk, so that Ms. Hartnett can fairly read the rest of what's on there.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Wolk, if you could just leave it where it is now. With Your Honor's permission, I don't see a need to keep the lights off. Can have that on, but if
That's
Ms.
great.
Hartnett
Lights
needs
on,
it,
please.
you'll just let us know. So, is this the evidence bag that the T-shirt and the hoodie were in when you received those items?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
You see the name of collected by someone there. Can you read who that states it was collected by?
Yes.
And state what that is.
It says TPR Proctor.
And are you able to conclude what the TPR stands for?
Generally, we use that to abbreviate trooper.
Right. So that is former Trooper Proctor that it says collected by, correct?
That is what's written on the bag, yes.
And the date of the collection, if we can just, Mr. Wolk, just focus in on that. Thank you. The date of the collection is January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Is it a fair conclusion from this evidence bag and your experience on the matter to conclude that former Trooper Proctor was the person who collected the evidence and put it in the bag?
I have no knowledge of who actually collected and put in the bag. I can only read what I see on the monitor.
In terms of, and if we could, Mr. Wolk, please take that down and put back up the side-to-side images and depictions of the T-shirt and the hoodie. Do you know the journey, if you will, of those two items before you received them?
No, I do not.
The debris that you ultimately saw on the hoodie and the T-shirt, and that which may or may not have also been additionally in the bag, do you know where that debris would have been picked up from?
No, I don't know the source of the debris.
And you were not provided with information as to the potential source of that debris, correct?
No.
Were you aware of whether or not the debris, whether those items had been on the floor of an ambulance or a floor of a hospital?
No, I did not have any information like that.
Is it important to maintain the sanitary condition of evidence generally to avoid contamination?
We do our best to avoid contamination once we receive items into evidence, yes.
And what are some of the protocols that are used to avoid contamination of evidence, generally?
Generally, wearing gloves, putting items in packaging, bleaching any materials or utensils that we're going to use, or using disposable materials, sterile materials when possible or necessary. We also wear lab coats when processing evidence.
Is another protocol or technique to separate out pieces of evidence to prevent cross-contamination?
Sometimes we will separate pieces of evidence. If the items are already mixed in with each other, then the items are kept together, can be kept together.
Do you know the chain of custody of either the hoodie or the t-shirt?
I only have record of the chain of custody from when it was delivered to the lab.
So before any delivery to the lab, you do not have knowledge of the chain of custody of either of those two items?
No, I just know which detective unit dropped the items off.
And which detective unit was that?
Norfolk Detective Unit.
What I would like to now do is to, we could now take that down. Thank you, Mr. Wolp. I want to sort of speciate, if you will, separate out the evidence that you have talked about so far so that it's clear what you submitted and what may have been submitted by others to the lab. Do you understand that concept generally?
Yes.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is to give categories, and if you would be kind enough to say, I submitted it by some other person, that would be helpful. Any items that were collected from the vehicle, who submitted those to the lab or brought them to the lab?
I did.
The swabs from the red Solo cups.
I submitted the swabs.
The drinking glass that you were presented with at Canton PD.
I submitted that item.
The two clothing items that we just saw on the screen, the hoodie and the t-shirt.
Those were submitted by the Norfolk Detective Unit.
Were there also any fingernails that were part of the investigation and that you had knowledge of?
Yes.
Describe what those were, please.
Fingernails may be collected at the medical examiner's office, and they're clippings from the top of the fingernails of the victim.
And were those submitted to the lab?
Yes.
And by whom?
By the Norfolk Detective Unit.
And the phrase known blood standards, are you familiar with that phrase?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, please, what that means?
A known blood standard is a sample of blood that is collected from an identified person.
And which person were those known blood standards related to your knowledge in this matter?
We received a tube of blood that was identified as belonging to John O'Keefe.
And with regard to the fingernails and the known blood standards, who submitted those to the lab?
The Norfolk County Detective Unit.
So am I correct to conclude that for those items that you submitted to the lab, you knew sort of their journey, if you will, but that those items that were submitted by, I think you referred to as Norfolk County, was that your parlance?
Yes, correct.
You don't have knowledge about those other than that they were submitted by them?
Prior to them arriving at the lab, correct. I have no knowledge of what occurred, where they were stored or anything like that before that.
And no knowledge of those items not submitted by you would include no knowledge of the chain of custody of those items, correct?
No knowledge prior to them being received into the lab. That is correct.
Your Honor, if I may have a moment, please. It'll
Okay.
probably be 30 to 45 seconds. Thank you. Bear with me, please, Ms. Hartnett. So the questions I have for Ms. Hartnett at this time, thank you for answering my questions, Ms. Hartnett.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brennan, any redirect?
Yes.
Okay, Brennan's up to bat. Let's see what he's got.
You mentioned that you had an opportunity to observe a paper bag that had red Solo cups in it,
Yes, that's correct.
and the red Solo cups had a coloring of red in the cups.
Yes.
You'd never seen blood preserved in cups like that before?
Objection, Your Honor.
To the form, sustained.
Had you ever seen blood stored in cups like that before?
No.
Do you know the circumstances of storing that blood?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
When the blood was stored in the cups, do you know the circumstances?
Sorry, Mr. Brennan. Your Honor, objection. Can we have a sidebar, please? It's important.
Okay?
Oh, I cannot wait until the transcript of the trial is released because I know that people are going to be talking about what happened at these sidebars. I feel like these, I cannot even fathom, and that might be just because I'm tired, but I cannot fathom what, because Mr. Alessi said it's important, and he is really good about, he understands Judge Bev's temperament. So if he's asking for a sidebar and saying it's important, then rest assured it's important.
The coloring in those cups, do you know firsthand what that comprised of, what the item was?
Are you asking me if I knew what the contents specifically of the cup
Yes.
were? No, I do not.
And so the red cups with the red spots stored in them, do you know the circumstances surrounding the effort made to try to preserve that evidence?
Can you just be more specific in what you mean by circumstances?
Sure. Do you know where those red cups came from?
I was told they were collected from the scene. I don't have firsthand knowledge of the collection.
And you weren't at the scene that morning, were you?
No, I was not.
Do you know that what the circumstances or the challenges were that morning?
No, I'm not aware.
Have you said that you respond to active scenes and sometimes, like in this case, after the event happens?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a difference when you're at an active scene as opposed to when you arrive at a scene that is past the event?
I would say multiple units are working at the same time, attempting to document, preserve, and collect evidence.
You were asked a few questions about the top back of the Lexus SUV.
Yes, that's correct.
When you were first asked the question, you were asked if you had studied that area, and you said you didn't recall if you looked at that area.
I did look at the area. I looked over the entire vehicle, but I didn't know anything specific in that area, no.
When you say you looked over the entire vehicle, did you look over the back of the vehicle as well?
Yes, the only part I did not look at was the roof of the vehicle.
Did you study all sides equally? Did you spend time with the entire vehicle?
I believe I made an effort, yes, to look at the entire vehicle.
When you studied the back of the vehicle, not the right side or left side, the back, middle, did you find any hair?
I did not note any hair, no.
Did you find any scratches?
The only scratches I noted were ones that I had spoken of previously on the right.
When you looked at the left side of that Lexus, did you find any dents or scratches?
Nothing that I noted, no.
Did you find any hair on that side of the car?
Not that I noted, no.
Did you find any dents, scratches, or hair anywhere but on other than the right side quarter of that Lexus?
I did not note any. I also did not examine the interior of the vehicle.
You said that you removed the hair. What did you do after you removed the hair?
The hair is placed into a small glassine envelope, then placed into a larger manila envelope, and then I signed and sealed it, gave it the appropriate case number and item number, and then secured it in our storage room.
Can that hair be further tested?
Yes.
Is that something you would do or a different person?
I don't perform testing on the hair. I performed a microscopic examination of it, and then additional testing can be performed by a different unit.
Let me ask you some questions about.
Let me ask you some questions. When you say in your testimony that you photograph it and collect it and place an item number and a case number, does that include backwards B's, lady?
Where you found the hair. You saw the two different angle pictures yesterday that you described?
Yes, I saw 2 pictures of that hair yesterday.
You were also shown some video where the car had snow and ice on it. Is water a conduit? Does water ever act as an adhesive?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can we stop that, please? And can you see that's 5:51:54 p.m. on 1/29/22?
Yes.
When you first saw this vehicle, it didn't have that snow on the right back near that taillight, did it?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently, Mr. Brown.
When you saw this vehicle for the first time, did it have that snow packed into the back right of the car?
No, to the best of my recollection, there was no snow on the vehicle when I saw it.
And the hair where you found it, you see the red back taillight, the piece of red that's showing?
I do see that, yes.
In reference or relative to that red, was the hair to the right, left, below?
I don't recall at this time.
Okay. Do you see the ice or snow on the right side quarter panel of that Lexus?
I don't see it on the quarter panel. I'm not sure what you're speaking of.
If we could move that video forward, please, to 702. And then to 749, please. Stop. Go forward just a little bit, please. Stop. Okay. There's still remnants of snow. Did it look like that when you first saw it?
No, I believe I did not see any snow on the vehicle when I saw it.
If you could fast forward, please. Thank you. You can take that down. Thank you. You were asked If you had any information about when damage occurred,
Yes, that's correct.
and you offered us, you don't have no idea, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
No, I do not know when the damage occurred.
You were asked whether or not damage existed on that car prior to that day, prior to January 29, 2022. You remember that question?
Yes.
Did you know there are ring videos of that car from January 28, 2022?
No.
I want to show you some photos and ask you a few questions. If we could have 147C, please. If you could, close up. Do you remember what that's a picture of or a photograph of?
Yes.
What is it?
That is a tear that was on the right sleeve of the gray sweatshirt.
The threads coming from the side of that hole?
Yes.
Those threads, could you pull those threads and pull them out by hand if you wanted to?
Can you repeat that question?
If you pulled on those threads, could you pull thread from that hole if you wanted to?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I don't know. I didn't attempt to pull at them at all.
Did you examine them to see if they were woven or loose, those threads?
Yes.
Okay, and what were they?
They were loose, the fibers that had started to separate up from the shirt. Separate and weave. I don't want to say they were separated from the shirt completely. The weave was starting to separate.
If we could have photograph 57. '57.
So Neat Noodle, in response to Bammy, crocheting Bammy's question, which was, Bammy's question was, crocheting Bammy, sorry. Couldn't they have done a DNA test on that one apparently very sticky piece of hair? And Neat Noodle responds with, it depends sometimes, but sometimes there is, if there is a root shaft, they can. There's some advances that allow for the strand alone, but it's still not available everywhere. Isn't that neat? Wouldn't that be mitochondrial DNA? And isn't that DNA that isn't mitochondrial DNA? Because you get your hair from your mother's gene pool, isn't it not the testing isn't the results don't yield a test that is specific to one person and one person alone? Isn't that how that works? It might have changed, but that's how I understood mitochondrial DNA, but it's been a long time, so. Hey, pointer lover. Good to see you, babe.
Are those the red cups that you saw?
Yes.
And what color is the fluid inside?
I noted there was red-brown stains inside.
Okay. And do you see that white object, the rag or the paper towel?
Objection, Your Honor. Scope.
Yes, sustained.
Well, you were asked about, you can take that down, you were asked about who had custody of items. You only have custody of items once you receive them, right?
Yes, that's correct.
If somebody had access to that rag and dipped it in those cups and then smeared it on the taillight, and you went and tested, would you potentially be able to find that red liquid on the taillight?
Objection, Your Honor.
It's sustained.
If strands of cloth were pulled from those clothing and placed in the taillight area, would you know when they were placed?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
When you get to a scene and you examine an area, if you don't see it firsthand, is there any way you can date when items are placed on an object?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time, please?
Sure. When you look at an area like a taillight, if you found blood or cloth or another item in that area, would you know when it was placed in that area?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll allow that.
I think there are really just too many variables to say either way.
And if an item like blood or cloth was placed in that area, is that something you would be looking for in your examination?
In which area?
Say the taillight, for example.
If there was an object placed in the taillight, would I be looking for that? I'd be looking for any item evidence. I'm not specifically looking for anything. I'm just looking for anything that could potentially be evidence.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything further, Mr. Liston?
Briefly, Your Honor. If we could, Your Honor, have 147C republished.
Excuse me, Mr. Alessi, I don't want to interrupt you or miss any of your cross-examination, but Nicholas answered me. And also, by the way, good morning. Good to see you. Nicholas says, yes, mitochondrial DNA is inherited only from the mother because the first mitochondria always comes from the egg cell. Thank you. It's nice to know that I retained some things from back in the day when I was in escuela learning things. And also, good morning, Sky Flash photographer. Good to see you.
Would it be acceptable to move it along if Ms. Gill, oh, you have it? Okay. If we could have Ms. Gilman, I have just one question, Your Honor. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilman. 147C, I believe it.
Okay, I think you already had it up there.
No, it's this one. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you just moments ago a question about this depiction?
Yes.
To be clear, this is the right sleeve of the gray hoodie, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You didn't perform any analysis of this area of the right hoodie, did you?
I performed damage analysis on each of those tears on the sleeve.
Right, but you didn't perform an analysis as to the source of that item, what it could be, correct?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure. You didn't do any analysis of what could have caused that hole in the sweatshirt, did you?
No, I did not.
No further questions. Again, thank you for answering my question.
All right, Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
I wanted to correct something from the record yesterday. I wasn't sure when was appropriate to do that.
Okay. Do you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Oh my
Yes, Mr.
God.
Alessi asked me the question.
Wait a minute. This is what?
Are we going to proceed along with that?
So why don't I see you outside?
Thank you.
Look, lady, okay? Let me ask you this. All right? This is why this trial should be watched, okay? Because the time to correct your testimony would have been from when the question was asked, because you did do that yesterday. You did. Okay? Not the next morning, because let me tell you what it gives the appearance of. It gives the appearance that you went back and reviewed your testimony, which you're not supposed to do because you're under an order of sequestration. That's one option. The other option is that you spoke to somebody about your testimony, which also is not allowed under the rules of sequestration. What in the actual F is happening here? Good morning, Tess. Good to
All
see
right,
you,
so
babe.
Ms. Harnett, I am going to let you step down because questions from both sides are completed.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
though.
Yeah. There should be an inquiry, in my opinion. I've got some questions.
Okay, Mr. Brennan, who is your next witness?
Next witness is Dr. Scortibello.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is the level of foolishness that is shameful.
Why don't I see counsel at sidebar, please?
Bev, what's the sidebar for now? Are you taking requests for the items that the council might want on the charcuterie tray or the fruit platter? Are they voting? Oh, look, it's Vinny. Hey, Vinny, what's up? Hi. I like Vinny Politan. I know that he, whatnot, but I mean, like, he doesn't always get it right. But he's human, and just in general, on the whole, I do like and appreciate Vinny. Okay. I just do. I mean, oh my gosh. What is happening? What are you sidebarring for, Bev? Yeah, he is definitely intrigued by whatever is on that screen by the person next to him. Maybe they're together though. You know. I just we're down one witness. We've had one witness. Now, why are we having a sidebar, Bev?
Okay.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm probably never going to get it. So I probably should just let it go. Okay? I need to let it go. Oh my God. What are you doing? Vinny don't care if he's on TV. He's on TV all the time. Put him back on the screen. We'll check out Vinny.
Yes.
You told us that the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now and here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Doctor. All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Irini Scoribello. That's spelled IRINISCORDI-BELLO. I am a medical examiner employed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
How long have you been a medical examiner for?
In the state of Massachusetts since December of 2016. In general, I have been a medical examiner since 2008.
Did you attend medical school?
Yes, I did.
Where did you attend medical school?
I completed medical school in New York City at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, now known as ICANN School of Medicine.
Did you attend a residency?
Yes, I completed my residency in anatomic pathology at the Mount Sinai Hospital.
Is that what you specialized in during your residency?
Yes.
After your residency, did you go right to the medical examiner's office or did you work anywhere else?
After my residency, I completed a one-year fellowship in forensic pathology that was done at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the City of New York, and then I went to work as a medical examiner.
Is there a certain type of doctor you are? Do you have a particular...
Yes, I am a forensic pathologist.
What are your duties at the medical examiner's office?
My duties and responsibilities at the medical examiner's office include performing examinations and autopsies to determine the cause and manner of death in cases that fall under our jurisdiction.
How many other doctors work with you at the medical examiner's office?
I think there's close to 20 of us. I don't know the exact number.
The medical examiner's office, are you responsible for all counties in Massachusetts as far as doing examinations and autopsies?
No, I am, my primary location is in Westfield, Massachusetts, where one of our satellite offices is, and we cover Worcester County and the entire western part of the state. There's 3 offices in the state, the one in Westfield, the one in Boston, and the office at the Cape, in Cape Cod.
You mentioned that part of what you do is to try to determine manner and cause of death?
Yes.
I use the word autopsy generally without too much detail. Can you describe for the jury what the process is when you're trying to determine the manner and cause of death?
You would like me to explain what an autopsy is?
Please.
An autopsy is a large surgical procedure with 2 main parts. The external examination, which is an examination of the outside of the body, where we document physical characteristics such as hair color, eye color. We document any identifying features such as scars or tattoos, height, weight. And then we also document any signs of disease or any signs of injury on the body. The second part of the autopsy is the internal examination, where we make surgical type incisions on the body and we examine the internal organs of the neck, the chest, the abdomen and the pelvis, as well as the head and the brain. Part of the autopsy procedure, and this depends on the kind of case we're doing an autopsy on, might include other studies such as taking evidence, toxicology, which is done on almost every case, and any additional dissections or any additional steps we might feel we have to take. But that's, in general, what an autopsy is.
Do you ever seek the assistance of any other doctors or professionals that have specialties in your determination in an autopsy about manner and cause of death?
Yes, absolutely. We often, well, like I mentioned before, we perform toxicology on almost all our cases, and those samples are sent to the toxicology state lab. We also have a board-certified neuropathologist and cardiac pathologist in our office, and very often we will consult with them in determining cause and manner of death.
Are cause of death and manner of death the same or 2 different things?
They're 2 completely different things.
Can you explain to us what the difference is between the 2 of them?
Yes. Cause of death refers to the disease or the injury that initiates a sequence of events that ultimately leads to someone's death. So that disease or that injury can be a natural disease such as atherosclerosis or coronary artery disease, or it can be some sort of injury. The manner of death has to do with the circumstances that led to the death. So there are 5 manners of death that we use in our practice. The most common one is actually natural. Natural means that the person's cause of death, the disease that killed them, was due to natural causes, and that would include heart disease, diabetes, cancer. All those are natural processes that take place in the body that lead to death, and so the manner of death is natural. If trauma or an injury is involved, then we have to decide then let me back up. If trauma or an injury is involved, then the manner of death is no longer natural. And therefore, it could be that the trauma was inflicted in an accidental manner, in which case the manner becomes accident. If it was inflicted by another person with the intent to cause harm, then the manner becomes a homicide. And if the trauma, and when I say trauma, I should include both physical and chemical trauma, chemical when it comes to intoxications due to drugs, etc. If the trauma was self-inflicted, then the manner of death is suicide. So we have natural, accident, homicide, suicide, and then the 5th one is what we call undetermined or could not be determined. That is when the circumstances in a case are not entirely known or clear to us, and the information that we have does not support one manner of death over another. In that case, we classify the manner of death as undetermined.
When you are conducting an autopsy and making an analysis and attempting to reach a conclusion, you said when you looked at in a case, is your case and what you do different than procedure in a prosecution's case?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I understand.
I can. When you're making your determinations about cause or manner of death, do you have any limitations?
Okay, so the cause of death is something that is determined by the autopsy. That is my opinion or our office opinion as to the disease or injury that led to that person's death. So that is, I don't have any major limitations unless we're dealing with cases where, the body's decomposed and we're not able to do, all the testing necessary. But in most cases, the cause of death depends on my findings during the autopsy. The manner of death, yes, there are limitations because it's circumstance driven, and so the circumstances might not be known to us at the time of the autopsy. They might not be known to us ever, and therefore, while the cause of death is my medical opinion, the manner of death depends on information I get from other people.
Are you always able to reach a conclusion on manner of death?
No, that's why I said that in cases that we cannot, that manner of death is classified as undetermined.
I want to now ask you about whether or not you examined John O'Keefe.
Yes, I did the autopsy on Mr. O'Keefe.
When you examined Mr. O'Keefe, did you work with a team or by yourself?
No, we always work in a team. The team is made up of the medical examiner and a medical examiner's assistant that helps with the actual performance of the autopsy, especially when we examine the head. And then, of course, we work with the toxicology lab and, in this particular case, our neuropathologist.
The medical examiner's office, is that a division of the Massachusetts State Police?
No.
Is it a division of the Norfolk County District Attorney's office?
No.
Is the medical examiner's office independent?
Yes.
When you conduct an autopsy, are representatives of law enforcement or district attorney's office able or allowed to attend an autopsy?
Yes, they're usually allowed to attend the autopsy if they wish.
Is that an uncommon practice?
No, it's not uncommon.
Would you remember when your autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe occurred?
Yes, I performed the autopsy on January 31st of 2022.
If you have notes,
Yes, I do.
I think you'll be able to use them, but we'll just want to indicate that you're reading from your notes if that's the case. Thank you.
So you can use your notes, Doctor. Just
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you began the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe, do you know who, if any, representatives from the Massachusetts State Police or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office were present?
I don't remember their names. I do believe there were 2 individuals, and every person who attends an autopsy has to sign a log, and their names would be logged in our records. I don't remember their names.
What is the role of law enforcement relative to the actual physical autopsy? Do they have any role?
No, they're not part of the autopsy. They don't have a role. Their role is to observe. Sometimes they will ask questions, and based on my findings, they might, go on and do their investigation.
Does your office photograph things of interest, like injuries on the person that you're doing the autopsy on?
Yes, we do.
Is law enforcement allowed to take their own photographs as well?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, memorialize your findings in this case?
I did.
Are there a number of different ways in which you memorialize your findings?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I took notes, physical notes, pen and paper. There's a report that's issued within 90 days of the completion of the autopsy, and then photographs, digital photographs.
You mentioned a report is due in 90 days. Is that often referred to as an autopsy report?
Yes.
Why 90 days?
That is the standard that is set by the National Association of Medical Examiners. We're part of NAME, and therefore we try to have a finalized report for all our cases within 90 days, because we know that families are waiting for these reports, and therefore we do our best to finish a report within 90 days.
Did you, in fact, complete a so-called autopsy report in this case?
Yes, I did.
In addition to the autopsy report, included in the autopsy report, do you make handwritten notations about locations of injuries?
Yes.
And share with us how's that done. Is there a picture or a graph?
There's a diagram, a body diagram that we use to mark the location of injuries.
May I approach, Your Honor?
yes.
May I?
Yes.
Do you generally recognize what these documents are?
Yes, these are my diagrams from Mr. O'Keefe's autopsy.
And did you just very basically describe each one of them?
Some of them. Yes, the first one is a body diagram. A lot of things have been whited out, but it's the diagram that I would use to make note of any injuries. The second one is a diagram of the face and the skull. I would also use this diagram to make notes as to any injuries on the face. And the third one is a diagram of the inside of the skull, what we call the base of the skull, as well as different views of the brain itself. Again, I would make notes to point out different injuries.
Thank you. As you are noting injuries in your autopsy report, these diagrams, they start off blank?
They start off blank and then they're filled out as we go along.
And you fill out all the details you find important in your report?
Correct.
For reference, and to assist us, I have some blank diagrams that I may ask you to point out things on the blank diagram for us.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I'd ask permission. I've spoken to defense to use these simply as a chalk.
Sure.
No objection, Your Honor.
Before you begin an autopsy, do you seek any medical records if available?
Yes. When a case is called into our office, depending on the time and the day that it is called in, our intake department, who are the people initially on the phone taking the information, will start asking for both medical records as well as police reports. So in the morning, when we start the autopsy, it's possible that we have some records. Sometimes if a decedent is brought to us from the hospital, there might be some records that come along with the body. But to answer your question, yes, we always ask for medical records, what we call PCP records, which are primary care physician records, any records from a hospital where the decedent may have been, and investigative reports, police reports.
Do you recall whether you had access to John O'Keefe's medical records from Good Samaritan Hospital?
I did have access, yes, in the day, I believe the day of and the following day.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Subject to any later reactions, I would move the Good Samaritan medical records into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 155.
This time I would move for identification all photos of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries at Good Samaritan Hospital just for identification.
Okay.
Exhibit JJ for ID.
Further, this time I'd move for identification all OCME, Office of Medical Examiner photos.
Okay.
Exhibit KK for ID.
Thank you.
Neat. I think he's saying chart.
Your Honor, this time
But-
I'd move all CSSS.
I can't help but say, and I've been thinking about this the whole time. I just haven't said it yet, but now I actually think I'm not exactly sure where Brennan is from, because he actually sounds more like Rhode Island to me than Boston. But, you know, Khaleesi is the name that Daenerys Targaryen was given, Khaleesi.
Autopsy photos for identification.
May I just have an understanding of the acronym that you use?
Sorry, I should have probably highlighted that. For that Henry said, yeah.
With the court's permission, Ms. Gilman, if you could put up the diagram, full body.
I'll be back tonight.
If you could enlarge
'Cause
that a
I
little
can't-
more. Thank you very much.
I can't
Could you
not talk
explain this
about
to
this
us?
testimony. This is the most
Yes,
important
this
testimony.
is the
or some of the
diagram
most.
that we use during every autopsy. As you can see, we note the name of the decedent. Every case has its own number. In this case, it was 22-1697. And then we take note of, as I mentioned, during the external examination, physical characteristics such as hair, eyes, teeth. And then on this diagram, we would note any scars we see on the body, any tattoos we see on the body, any injuries we see on the body, and any therapeutic interventions, those would be things that are sometimes done either by emergency medical personnel or at the hospital. Everything would be noted on this diagram.
Now, if you could take us through, I'm going to ask you, we'll go body part by body part, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to begin with Mr. O'Keefe's face, the front of his face. And if you could enlarge that, Ms. Gilman. Thank you very much. Did you notice any injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's face? And if so, could you, I think there's a pointer available for you, Doctor? If you could point out on the diagram what you observed.
So on the diagram, well, first of all, there was medical intervention on Mr. O'Keefe that included an endotracheal tube that had been placed to help him breathe. But once all the intervention, all the medical devices were removed, I observed on his right upper eyelid a 1 centimeter laceration. So as we're looking at the diagram, this is the right side and this is the left side. So on his right eyelid, there was a small laceration. I also observed abrasions on the anterior and the left aspect of the nose. So the nose would be here on the front and the left aspect. Abrasions are scrapes. Lacerations are tears in the skin. I should probably explain that. Then there was some bleeding and some swelling of the eyelids of both eyes.
Does that complete your analysis?
For the front of the face, correct, yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's face.
Does that photograph depict any of the observations or injuries you made that you just described to the jury?
Yes, it shows the small laceration that I noted during the autopsy on the right eyelid. You can see some of the swelling and some of the bleeding over his eyelids. And that's pretty much all I can see because it's a side view.
Is there an apparatus?
There is what we call an endotracheal tube, as well as a C collar or a C stabilization collar. That's something that would have been placed on him by medical personnel.
All right, we'll do some evidence and ask for instruction.
Okay. All right. So, folks, during the testimony of Dr. Scorti-Bello, photos will be introduced to you. They're photographs of John O'Keefe that Dr. Scorti-Bello from the autopsy. So you'll have them in the jury room with you. I'll put them in an envelope, or I'll ask that they be put in an envelope. So if you don't want to look at them now, you don't have to. At some point, we'd ask that you make sure you look at it. These photos are not pleasant, and you may find that they're graphic. But what's important for you to know is that your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant or graphic. The defendant is entitled to a verdict based solely on the evidence and not based on pity or sympathy for Mr. O'Keefe, which might be occasioned by these photographs. So consider the photographs only as they draw your attention to a clinical, medical status, or to the nature of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, or to the nature of the incident itself. So they'll be displayed up on the screen for you as well.
The last exhibit is Exhibit 156.
Thank you.
Ms. Gilman, could you show the jury? And Doctor, can you point out the injuries you were describing by using the diagram, or when you were using the diagram?
So the laceration, the small laceration that I previously described would be here on the right upper eyelid of Mr. O'Keefe. You can see some discoloration that's bleeding under his eyelid and what I would describe as swelling. The endotracheal tube and the neck collar are also present here, and the other injury, which I noted, was on the front and left side of his nose, which you cannot see here because this is looking at the right side of his face.
Okay. Take that down, please. You mentioned that there was something about his eyes that was notable?
Yes, there was bleeding or hemorrhage, as we call it, on the eyelids, as well as swelling.
I'm going to ask you more detail about that later, but was that observation important in your ultimate diagnosis or conclusions? Yes. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you another photograph. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is another picture showing Mr. O'Keefe's face. Again, the medical intervention is present, and you can see more clearly now the discoloration on the upper eyelids.
Is this vantage point helpful for your ultimate conclusions and diagnosis?
Yes.
Your Honor, move this into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 157.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show this to the jury.
Yes.
P645, please. Doctor, could you point out what was significant regarding Mr. O'Keefe's eye area?
So I noted that there was discoloration, that's bleeding, that's blood, that's under those eyelids. The eyelids appear puffy, that's what we call edema or swelling. And then also there were two abrasions, two scratches on Mr. O'Keefe's nose. You can see one here and then the other one on the more front part of his nose.
Okay, could you take that down, please? If we could move down a bit to the chest and stomach area, did you make any observations about this area, Dr. Scotabella?
The observations that I made on the chest were that there was, as I mentioned before, there were defibrillator pads on the body, and there was an abrasion that's very commonly seen in people who have undergone resuscitation. Internally, that abrasion and the whole resuscitation apparatus was associated with some anterior rib fractures, which are also seen in cases of resuscitation, but I didn't make any other notes in terms of trauma on the chest or abdomen.
Okay. I'd like to move to the arms and the hands, if we could come down just a little bit. Let's begin with Mr. O'Keefe's hand or hands. Did you make any observations regarding Mr. O'Keefe's hand or hands?
Yes. On his upper right arm, I noted that he had a superficial abrasion, so it would have been, you can
we move that down a little bit?
Move it
please?
down a little bit. Yeah, thank you. You seem to be doing a very good job. Okay, somehow doesn't want to
Sorry
work.
if that's not working well.
It's projecting here, but not on the actual picture.
Okay. There may be a second pointer.
I can do it here.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So on the right upper medial arm, that would be the inner side of his arm, there was a superficial abrasion. Again, that's a scrape. Then on his right posterior arm and forearm, so not exactly on this aspect of the arm, but on the back side of the arm, which would be in the back of the diagram, there were multiple abrasions, which I described as ranging from 2 to 3 millimeters and up to 7 centimeters. Then, if you could move the diagram down, please. Again, there is a back to this diagram. I don't know if you could put that on the screen. There we go. So this is now the right side, and this is the left. I noted that there were 2 bruises on the back of his right hand. Also a faint scratch on the back of his left hand. And then moving down to the lower extremities or the legs, if you could please show the front, there was a small abrasion, a small scrape on the side of his right knee.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the back of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand, I believe.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of how his hand appeared when you examined him?
Yes.
Will this is evidence, please?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 158.
With the court's permission, I'd show P647 to the jury. And could you explain, you said there were 2 bruises. Could you point those out for us?
Yes. There's one here and one here.
Did you attempt to assess those, determine whether you could conclude or opine on a cause of those?
No, I did not. Well, I take that back. I'm sorry. So this particular one has 2 small little pinpoint defects in the middle, which we sometimes see when emergency personnel tries to get access to a vein for fluids, for intravenous fluids. So, but I did not put that in my report. I just described it as a contusion.
Is it common to see that type of coloration where medical personnel put intravenous or other types of support into somebody's hand?
Yes, it's very common for the skin to bruise when someone tries to get access to a blood vessel.
The other coloration that is unrelated to those 2 small points, would you have a description of what those are?
No.
Okay. I'd also like to show you exhibit number 1. Exhibit number 1, please. Thank you. You use the word superficial. What does that mean?
Superficial means that the abrasion is on the superficial layers of the skin, usually the epidermis and sometimes the dermis, but there's no penetration of the skin.
When you're assessing to determine whether there's any penetration, do you measure the length of the wound or the abrasion?
Penetration would be measuring the depth. If there was actual penetration, I would have to measure how deep into the skin. For example, when we assess stab wounds, we have to measure the depth of the wound. In this particular case, you can see that these are scrapes or scratches, and there's no exposed underlying fat or muscle. And therefore, to answer your question, I measured their length, and gave a range, but I did not measure their depth.
As a routine practice during an autopsy, doctor, if there was penetration or depth, would you, as a routine, measure that?
I would make a note of it.
Are there any such notes in any of your autopsy findings or reports about depth?
No, I did not make a note on the depth of these ones.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to how those superficial abrasions occurred?
I do not.
And I asked you about the hand, which we just saw, and I should ask you the same question. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how that coloration, aside from the medical intervention, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how the other discoloration happened on Mr. O'Keefe's hand?
I can state to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that that's a bruise, a contusion, but I cannot tell you how it occurred.
And to summarize finally what we've been through so far, regarding the scrape on Mr. O'Keefe's right eye, can you provide an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how that scrape occurred?
No, I cannot.
You mentioned for us that when you looked at Mr. O'Keefe's legs, you observed bruising on his, or a small scratch on his right knee.
Correct.
I don't want to summarize it. Can you describe that
Can we turn
more
the lights on,
specifically?
please?
Thank you.
Yes, I described it as a 0.5 centimeter abrasion on the right lateral knee.
Did you see any marks or abrasions on his left knee?
No, I did not.
Was the mark, scratch on Mr. O'Keefe's right knee on the inside or the outside of the knee?
It was on the lateral aspect, which would be the outside.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
This is a picture of Mr. O'Keefe's lower extremities, his legs.
Is it a fair, accurate depiction of how his knee appeared when you did the autopsy?
Yes.
All right, we'll get the evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
159.
Thank you.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury 9467.
Yes.
You used the word lateral and you talked about abrasion or a scrape. Could you look at this photograph and could we enlarge it, Ms. Gilman, and could you point out to the jury and explain what it is that you saw?
Yes, you can see the abrasion here with a little bit of adjacent discoloration, but this is what I was describing.
If you could zoom back out, please. And you didn't see any similar type bruising or abrasions on the left knee?
No.
During your autopsy, did you notice any injuries internally to Mr. O'Keefe's rib area?
Yes, I did note that there were rib fractures on the anterior, that would be the front, of his 4th and 5th ribs.
And so would that be his left or right side?
It would be both the right and the left, and it would be the part of the rib that is closer to the sternum.
Is there a number of ribs that had fractures, or are they connected as one?
The 4th and the 5th, both on the right and the left, close to the sternum.
Have you, in your experience, seen ribs fractured during first aid or medical intervention?
Very often, yes.
Given your experience and your study of Mr. O'Keefe's body, do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty how those rib fractures were obtained?
I believe those rib fractures were due to resuscitation.
And you have that opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
I'd like to show you a different diagram, one of the head area. If we could enlarge the bottom right. Thank you. Using that diagram, could you assist us, doctor, and explain to us any observations you made about the back of John O'Keefe's head?
Yes. The main observation was a laceration that is a skin tear on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head to the right of midline. So this was the midline. The laceration was somewhere here, is what we call the right occipital area, and associated with that there was an abrasion over it that would have been here. So this was what we call a compound injury, an abraded laceration.
We'll turn in a few moments to your autopsy observations about the inside of Mr. O'Keefe's skull. But first I want to just show you a photograph relative to what you described to us. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, this is a picture taken at the time of autopsy. This is the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head. The hair has been shaved off so that the injury can be clearly photographed, and it's a laceration with an associated abrasion.
Thank you. Your Honor, move this into evidence.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 160.
When you examine the laceration, do you measure it?
Yes,
And did you measure it in this case?
I did measure it.
How long was the laceration?
I measured it as 2.5 centimeters, which is close to an inch.
Do you examine a person's body before you begin to intrude? Do you examine the outside of a person's body first, or is there a certain procedure or order?
Yes, the external examination is done first, and the internal examination is done second.
I want to show you that photograph that you just recognized, and I would like you to explain what you see to the jury. Ms. Gilman, with your assistance, thank you.
This is the laceration that I noted, and this is the scrape that's associated with it.
Take that down, please. After you make observations, what are your next steps in an autopsy?
The internal examination, after the external is performed and pictures are taken, then we proceed with the internal examination of both the, as I mentioned before, the torso, the body, as well as the head.
I'd like you to take us through the internal examination. Did you have a chance to look internally behind the laceration you saw on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head?
Yes.
And when you did that, could you describe for us what you saw?
Yes. The way we examine the head is we make an incision with a scalpel behind the ear from one side to the other. That allows us to reflect or pull back the scalp, and that will expose the skull underneath. We do this carefully so that we don't disfigure clearly the face. And when we reflected and when we pulled back the scalp, I noted that there was blood, what we call hemorrhage, under the laceration or associated with the laceration on the back of the right head. And then furthermore, there were skull fractures associated with that laceration, abrasion on the right side of the head.
Were the skull fractures in the same or different area?
The skull fractures were in multiple areas of the skull, what we call the base of the skull. Imagine the base of the skull is sort of a bowl, and the brain sits on top or in the bowl. When the brain is removed, you can have a very good view of the base of the skull. So when the brain was removed and we were able to look at the base of the skull, I noted that there were multiple fractures that appeared to be originating from the area of the laceration, or what would correspond to the area of the laceration.
When you made your examination of the fractures in the skull, did that lead you to your opinion, or was there more you needed to look at before you came to an opinion about the cause of death?
Well, that was part of the findings that led to my opinion. But yes, I removed the brain, and as is our protocol, I saved the brain in a special solution called formalin that allows the brain to become a little harder so that our neuropathologist in Boston could go ahead and examine it. Because when I did look at the brain, I noted that there were injuries. There was bleeding on top of the brain. And therefore, I saved it. The brain ultimately went to our Boston office, and our neuropathologist, Dr. Stonebridge, examined it and issued a report.
Did you engage in any type of analysis on your own about any injury to Mr. O'Keefe's brain?
I noted the kind of injuries I could see superficially on the brain, and I have looked at the brain after it was fixed and pictures of it, but I did not issue a report on it. The whole point was for our neuropathologist to examine it closely and issue a more detailed report.
I have a few more photos. Would now be an appropriate time for a break, Your Honor?
Yes. So, jurors, why don't we take 15 or 20 minutes, okay?
Would all rise for the jury?
Okay. Once again, Judge Beth is trying to appear as if she's pleasant, as if she's in a good mood, and as if she is cognizant that these pictures might be difficult, but what she really comes across as unorganized. 15 or 20 minutes. All right. There are 18 people on the jury. That's that could just show up at some point, which means that if somebody on the jury, it doesn't even matter how many, even if it's just one person on the jury decides, I'm taking 20, then the other 17 people are waiting. Bev, get it together. All right. At this point in the medical examiner's testimony, none of the injuries that she has described thus far are injuries that are typically associated with being struck by a vehicle. Now, I know that the Commonwealth has made it a point, almost ad nauseum, to point out how hard the ground was that day. But because the injuries, the most severe injuries, were only to John O'Keefe's head, and they were to the back of his head, to me, what it's giving is hit in the back of the head with a blunt object. And Tess, thank you. Tess says, I cannot get comfortable. I really wonder why he called her, as he tried to exclude her testimony in pretrial motions. I mean, yeah, it does make you wonder. The only thing that I can think of, Tess, is that he wants to get ahead of any testimony that may be damaging to the Commonwealth and have it be able to have an opportunity to control the way that it's put out initially to the jury. And Neat says, I think he could have gotten those injuries from falling backwards. The ones to the back of his head or the other, like, external injuries. Because I'm not arguing, I'm just curious. I just don't, it just doesn't sound to me that the severity of the, and we don't know truly the severity, but I will say this, it was severe enough, the injury to his brain, that that the forensic pathologist decided to preserve it and send it out for a much more comprehensive evaluation. I would like to, because I do understand medical terminology. I am familiar with pathology because my mom was a histologist, and so I was around pathologists all growing up. But to me, the injuries, particularly the blackened eyes, to me sounds more like a fight. I don't know. I got it. I just want to hear what she has to say. And I'm just, because she's not done. And I really should, refrain from making opinions during the testimony because that's not like really fair. But at the same time, I mean, we have, according to Bev, 15 or 20 minutes. Who knows which one? Both. So I don't want to like just be sitting here, and not talking. I think what Neat Noodle is saying is because she said back of the head. Are you thinking that falling backwards and falling onto something like a step outside, like a concrete stoop step, something blunt but hard? Um, Violet says, can Alessi go into the communication that the Massachusetts State Police were reporting to her or the text exchanges calling her a whack job when she didn't rule it a homicide? They've already put those out. I believe that those came in by way of the trooper who attended the autopsy, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't think that they can use those specific texts calling her a whack job and stuff. I don't think that they can go into those texts with this witness because she's not part of that text. But any information that was reported to her by the Massachusetts State Police, yes, I do think that they can go into that because that's part of the information that she was given that goes into, because she explained on direct, the circumstances surrounding. So Neat Noodle says, yes, I have a medical issue that causes fainting. Twice when this happened, I ended up with stitches and concussed from hitting the back of my head on the ground. Okay. I understand what you're saying. But I would think, yeah, he had to be. That is scary, Neat. But I don't know. I'm going to reserve. I need to hear more about this situation. So Leslie says, I think falling back can jar the brain forward. Hard to blacken the eyes. However, one eye had a laceration. The brain couldn't do that. No, that's true. That's true. Something caused that. Something external caused that. I have to say that like I said, the injuries that have been described thus far to me aren't typical. When I have seen other testimony from forensic pathologists respective to being hit by a vehicle. Yes, I would say I agree. I agree with Neat saying, not saying you're wrong, Bendy. I know you're not, babe. We're just having a talk. only a fall backwards can cause that kind of damage. Yes. Yes, you can. A falling backwards can cause, and especially when you fall backwards and you hit something hard, that can absolutely cause that kind of damage. And maybe, although I don't subscribe to this, right? I think that just simply falling, meaning, like to your example, Neat, falling backwards because you fainted. I um, under your own weight, okay? You had an injury, but not that you didn't fracture your skull. Um, you got a concussion, but there, so what I'm thinking is, and maybe this is why the Commonwealth is sticking to the whole that the car hit him. I think he had to have been, I don't think it was just under his own weight, meaning he fainted or got knocked out in a fight. I think that, to me, there because of that, it seems like there would have been force exuded. Perhaps he was shoved really hard. Like, I don't know. I need to hear more. Crocheting Bammy, he was not. No, he was not. He was pronounced dead at the hospital, and lots of life-saving measures were taken. And I do believe that if he had no pulse, no heartbeat, and was not breathing, I don't think they would have worked as hard as they did. And they did work on him for a while at the hospital. I think there was some activity. Um, I'm just, I think I'm just going to reserve um, more commentary um, until we hear the rest of the testimony, because um, I think that's important. All right, I do need just a brief comfort break. I don't know that I can make it 5 more minutes, because I don't think it's going to be 5 more minutes. You know how it is. Okay. Oh, I wonder what that's about. All right, I'll be right back. Okay. So, first of all, I did go briefly to listen to your suggestion, Nicholas. I forgot about, oh, excuse me. I didn't mean to burp. I'm sorry, you guys. Hold on. I'm so sorry. That was really rude. It just kind of came out. Um, I love Riverdale. And like I said in the chat, I don't care who knows it. It's one of those shows that I started watching with Minnie Bendy back in the day. And I just like that show. I don't care. Um, and the other show that she and I used to watch together was 13 Reasons Why. And the reason I watched it is because it with her was because the kids and she was in middle school at the time or junior high. And the, the kids her age were watching it. And I thought that it would be better because I know it deals with some really hard um, situations, difficult situations, traumatizing situations, but real situations. And I felt like um, they were gonna I would rather watch it with her and be able to, first of all, know what it is that she's watching, and number 2, because I didn't know how in-depth they were gonna go. I wasn't ready for some of the scenes, let me tell you that right now. Some of them, I mean, they still exist in my brain. Um, but I wanted to be able to talk to her about them and, her to feel free and feel comfortable to talk with me about it. Um, you know what, Tess? Yes. Tess says, "I watch a lot of shows that are too young for me, probably." I don't care. Sames. You know what I got stuck in? Cruel Summer. Okay, that was a good one. I thought season 1 was far better than season, uh, 2, and I think they have even a season 3. Um, I like season 1 the best. Let me start there. All right, there's that. I also love School Spirits, and I don't care who knows it. OMG. No, I did not. A dose of Genlu. Did you see the AI Derek Carney made about this trial with the Star Wars bar scene? Oh my God. The Cantina band. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love those shows. I don't care, man. I don't care. Wolfie says, "I love Blue's Clues." The question, Wolfie, is, and I know that there's a third one, but I can't remember. I've never seen those, so I don't know. Joe or Steve? Hold on. Hold on a second. Give me a second, you guys. Just a sec. Oh my God, hold on. Sorry. Oh my God, Wolfie. Wolfie, you are a mod. Can you put that link in the chat for everybody to enjoy? Pretty please? Okay, thank you. I'm so glad about this. Wolfie said, "Steve, duh." Me too. Me too. Listen, I ain't got nothing against Joe. Like, I ain't got no beef with Joe or anything like that. It's just, I like Steve much better. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Wolfie. I appreciate that. You guys, once again, the internet remains undefeated. Okay. You know that scene from Mommy Dead and Dearest? It is a home movie. that Gypsy Rose Blanchard's mom, Dee Dee Blanchard, took, where she's all, "This is Gypsy Rose Blanchard reporting live from Aurora, and we've had snow, and I'm gonna dive in it." Whee! And I made a cartoon, y'all. Oh my God. I'm sorry. This is why the internet remains undefeated, because of things like this. Oh my God. You guys have to see this. What is going on here? Come on. OnlyFan. Oh my gosh. It's hilarious. I don't see Chief. Chief, are you in here? Hold on a minute. Let me look. Hold on. Oh, there you are. Hey, Chief. Good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. You guys got to go click. Click and come back and then tell me what you think. Okay. Tess says, my new favorites are the lawyers as babies. I can't get enough of them. Yes. 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 They're also doing, Theo Vaughn and his podcast or whatever. They're doing those as babies too. I can't. It's so good. It is so good. It is so good. You know what I'm curious about? Judge Judy as a baby is a good one too. That's a good one as well. That's a good one as well. I'm so curious about the age range of the people who decided to make this. I'm curious what generation they're from. This, to me, I'm gonna have to look this up. Give me a second. Is it on? I know it's got to be on YouTube. Hold on, let me find it. Hold on. Let me just open up a whole new tab. Give me a second, because now I've got to find this. All right.
You are unmuted.
Thank you for asking.
Back to session, you may be seated.
So you wanted to see me?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Okay, over here or?
Let me see if I can find it. I know that I've watched those, but if I go through my history, it's going to be like 5 ever. I'm going to need a link for these. Yes, Leslie, the internet stays on Gypsy, and I am here for it. Yes, we're all here for it. We're all here for it. For reals. Tess, can you put a link in the chat for the baby so I can find it, so I can have it? Please, 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 please. Pretty please, with the cherry on top. They just stay on Gypsy. Like, homegirl cannot, when they like put up she did a live where she was, and I use this term so loosely, working out. Oh, it's so good. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I got to find these lawyers as babies. Where are they at? Bro. I don't know why I can't find it. Let's see if I look this way, if I can find it this way. No. No, I cannot. I don't like sometimes I'm super great at searching. I can find anything, everything, all the things. And then there's today, which obviously I'm on the struggle bus. Apparently it's on the Tickety Talks. All right, I'll go to the Tickety Talks. I got to be careful with the Tickety Talks because hold on. Because I can't usually share them because of their music or whatever, but let me see if I can, just for my own enjoyment. I'll just do it on my phone. I'm not going to do it on here because I don't want to log in on here. I'm already logged in too many places everywhere. Wonder what the sidebar is about, you guys. What do you think? Let me see. I can always send it to myself. Where's my... What is going on? I can't. I'm telling you guys. Oh, there it is. I got an all-day pass aboard the struggle bus. For reals. Oh my God. The first one that pops up when I search it is the hold on a minute, you guys. Hold on. Let me see if I can hold on. Let me see if I can I'll pull it up this way. Hold on a minute. Is the the forensic digital forensic analyst expert lady. Oh my, hold on. Let me see if let me I sent it to myself, so hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull it up here. All right, hold on.
Please. Tori, I'm going to give you those. Those were both marked for ID. So one will be coming into evidence and one will be...
Hold on, you guys. Judge Bev, I don't know what you're doing or what you're talking about, but I'm way too distracted with this right here that we need to watch this. Hold on a minute. Let me rewind. It's only 52 seconds. It'll be fine. All right. Y'all ready?
Absolutely no way to delete anything on your... There is absolutely no way to delete anything on your iPhone. Ever.
What day was it when you wrote this sketchy report?
It was May 4th. It's easy to remember because you can say, "May the 4th be with you."
Objection, Judge. Objection.
Sustained. I said sustained.
I heard her say I hit him with my own ears.
Objection, Judge? I will allow it.
I hit him. I would never do that. I dropped him off at the flagpole on 34 Fairview.
Another sidebar, really?
I think this is the right shoe. Wait, it might be the left shoe.
You are a liar? Objection.
Sustained. Once again. Sustained.
Oh my God, you guys. Oh my goodness. All right, here we go. Let's go back to what we're supposed to be doing. All right. Oh, I know there's tons of them, but we got to get back to the trial or I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to get it in the comment section there and be like, why are you sidebarring? Just kidding. Most people are cool and they'll laugh.
You consider stand wherever you're more comfortable, Doctor. For now.
Oh, look at Judge Bev. She's got her pleasant face on today. What are we even waiting on, y'all? Crocheting Bambi says Bev is feeling much better now that she dropped the kids off at the pool and had a Virginia Sims. You know what? Judge Bev looks like she smokes Misties to me, which I'm not judging her for being a smoker. I'm a smoker. Didn't I tell y'all? One of the jurors. See, this is what happens when you don't give them a firm time. We're just sitting around kicking it for no reason. Caprice. Oh my God. My mom smoked Misties. All right.
session. Please be seated.
All right, Mr. Brennan.
My parents used to smoke Winston's.
Doctor, when we left off, you had described all the injuries to the exterior of Mr. O'Keefe, and we had talked about your observations of both the fractures in his skull and also your observation of Mr. O'Keefe's brain. You mentioned earlier that you use other resources, other testing. Did you ask for any type of assistance on toxicology analysis for Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, it is routine, and it is protocol to submit toxicology specimens to the lab for examination.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Doctor, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the report of toxicology from the State Police Crime Lab for Mr. O'Keefe's autopsy.
Have you seen that document before?
Yes.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the report you saw before?
Yes.
Do you want to introduce this as the next exhibit, please?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Exhibit 161.
Thank you. I have that in front of me. Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In your experience, Doctor, are you familiar what the toxicology report and the testing involves?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Are you familiar in your experience with what is involved in a toxicology test?
In general terms, yes.
And if you studied Mr. O'Keefe's toxicology report, was that important or part of your analysis in your ultimate conclusions?
It was one piece of evidence that I took into consideration, yes.
In the toxicology testing, is there a search to see if there are any type of drugs or medications in Mr. O'Keefe's blood?
Yes.
Okay. And was there any?
There were no prescription medications. There were no illicit drugs in his system.
In a toxicology, is there also a testing for blood alcohol content?
Yes.
What is the difference between ethanol in heart blood and ethanol under 1102?
In vitreous humor?
Yes.
So we usually submit multiple specimens for toxicology. Some of the specimens are used for screening of classes of different drugs, and then other specimens are used to confirm, the presence and quantify a particular drug. So in this particular case, the lab tested the heart blood, which showed that it had an ethanol level of 0.21 grams per deciliter. And they also tested the vitreous, which is the fluid that sits behind the eyeball. And in that specimen, the ethanol was slightly higher at 0.28.
Thank you, doctor. After your autopsy and observations of Mr. O'Keefe's body, inevitably did you come to a conclusion about the manner and cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death? And I'll ask you first about the cause. To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did you reach a conclusion about the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death?
Yes. The cause of death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia.
You mentioned two different things, blunt impact and hypothermia. Was
Correct.
there a primary cause of death in your opinion?
The blunt impact injuries of head.
Hypothermia, Was that sufficient to be a primary cause of death, in your opinion?
In the absence of head trauma, hypothermia is a cause of death, but I'm not able to make that determination in this case because we do have the blunt impact injuries of head.
So if I understand, you are not saying to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that hypothermia was the cause of death?
Not the primary. It contributed, but the primary cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head.
Did you learn what Mr. O'Keefe's body temperature was when he was brought to the hospital?
Yes, some of the medical records stated that his body temperature was 80.1, I believe, degrees Fahrenheit.
And what is a normal body temperature?
98.6.
Regarding the blunt force injuries as the cause of death to Mr. O'Keefe, at some point when you were conducting your autopsy, or even at the end when you drew your conclusions, were you able to reach a conclusion as to the manner of Mr. O'Keefe's death to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
No, I was not.
After you complete your findings, including the manner of death and the cause of death, even if undetermined, are you required by statute, by law, to file a report or a document?
Yes.
And what is that document?
It's the death certificate.
Did you do so in this case?
Yes.
When you file a death certificate, do you include your ultimate conclusions regarding cause and manner of death?
Yes. There is a death certificate that is issued immediately after the autopsy. The death certificate is a document that is necessary for the family in order to make funeral arrangements and proceed with their plans. So a death certificate is always issued at the end of the autopsy. If the cause and manner of death are known at that point, they are stated on the death certificate. If they are not, or if we need to do additional studies, then both the cause and the manner are listed as pending. And that death certificate is sufficient for the family to make arrangements. Later, as we get more information, as we get more results from our studies back, we issue an amended death certificate. So that amended death certificate will have a cause and a manner. The amended death certificate, in this case, stated that the cause was blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and the manner was undetermined.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is the final or amended death certificate for Mr. O'Keefe, stating that the cause of death is blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and that the manner of death could not be determined.
Do you recognize that document as accurate?
Yes.
All right, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Exhibit 162.
After issuing the death certificate and after the 90 days pass, have you done any further study or investigation on this case, Doctor?
No.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Mr. Alessi?
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
We have not had the pleasure of meeting, so good morning, Dr. Scordi-Bello.
Good morning.
With regard to cause of death as opposed to manner of death, is it correct that a forensic pathologist is tasked with determining that cause of death that includes contributing factors, injuries, and circumstances regarding the medical legal death investigation? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And I'm using the term medical legal. Is that a term that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And is it correct that medical legal means, particularly for medical examiners, that there's a medical aspect to the investigation that you perform, and there's also a legal aspect or a law enforcement aspect to it? Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's a little different than what physicians usually do, right? Because isn't it the ordinary course that it's mostly just medical, but medical examiners by statute and law need to have both of those prongs taken into consideration? Do I have that right?
Yes.
So, in other words, the forensic pathologist, which you've indicated you are, is tasked with determining the cause of death, which answers the question as to why, in more layman's terms, why did the individual's body stop functioning at a particular time, correct?
Yes.
So more broadly, the cause of death is generally defined as the disease or the injury that resulted in the death of a person.
Correct.
So let's now, if we could please, move to the manner of death. And I'd like to summarize, I know you covered it on direct, but I want to put it in a slightly different context, and hopefully I'll get it right. So medical examiners, as you've stated, are also tasked with, if they can, determining the manner of death or the circumstances under which the death occurred, correct?
Correct.
So manner can and does involve the circumstances under which the death occurred.
Yes.
And that causes one to go a little, the medical examiner to go beyond just medical analysis. You take into consideration other factors which we'll get to. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you talked about, and I'm just going to go through them quickly, but if you could just check me on this, the 5 main categories of manner of death. So you've talked about natural causes, correct?
Yes.
You talked about accident.
Correct.
You talked about suicide. You talked about homicide. And then the last category, undetermined. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you do.
So what I'd like to do is to focus on the undetermined category. And my understanding is, Doctor, that that's where you landed, that's where you concluded with regard to manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
So undetermined is a term that is used and that you use, and does that mean that when the information pointing to one manner is not more compelling than other reasonable possibilities, or the death investigation lacks sufficient information to opine on a manner of death, at the time of death the certificate is signed? Is that generally correct?
Yes.
So as we've talked about, I'm just trying to follow or just develop some logic and see if this is in agreement with you, that as a medical examiner, you're specifically tasked with this, conducting that medical legal investigation, and what we've just talked about is a bit of the method of analysis that you go through for that, correct?
I conduct the autopsy, and I request information information from the investigative body that is out there investigating the other aspect of the case, not the body itself.
Yes. So is it correct that there's 4 general components to a forensic pathologist death investigation? Is scene investigation one of the components?
It depends on the jurisdiction where you practice. Scene investigation is part of forensic pathology in certain jurisdictions, and it is the responsibility of the district attorney and law enforcement in other jurisdictions. In the state of Massachusetts, we are responsible for the autopsy, and the DA's office and law enforcement are responsible for the scene investigation.
Excellent. So scene investigation in the state of Massachusetts is not within your domain in the office of the medical examiner. That is the domain of the district attorney and law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
How about another aspect, forensic autopsy and laboratory testing? That's within your domain, correct?
Correct.
And how about police reports and witness statements?
That is not under my jurisdiction. That is under the district attorney's office and the police.
Do you consider information, nonetheless, from police reports and witness statements in your analysis?
Yes.
And do you also consider, even though it's not within your jurisdiction in Massachusetts, do you also consider information about scene investigation?
Yes.
So it's correct then that you consider, whether it's within your jurisdiction or not, you consider scene investigation and police reports and medical statements, correct?
Yes.
And then forensic autopsy and laboratory testing is right within your jurisdiction, and therefore, of course, you consider that. And then lastly, medical history and hospital records, is it, therefore, am I correct that that's something within your jurisdiction and that you consider in performing your forensic pathologist death investigation?
Yes.
So now let's move on to the application of those principles. So in order to conduct a proper medical legal investigation, the medical examiner has to have certain qualities, if you will. Is one of them being well-grounded in general medical knowledge?
Yes.
Is another appropriate training and experience in forensic pathology?
Yes.
In other words, you wouldn't want a specialist, for example, in cardiology without anything more to be conducting a death investigation. Is that correct?
I would not want them to be conducting an autopsy, correct?
Right. Would you want a neurologist to conduct a death investigation?
Personally, or are you asking me that? No, I don't think every physician has their specialty and their training, and forensic pathologists are trained to perform autopsies, and cardiac surgeons are trained to perform cardiac surgery.
Would you want a neurosurgeon to be conducting a death investigation?
To be performing an autopsy? No.
So you wouldn't want a neurosurgeon to perform an autopsy?
No.
Because you don't believe they're qualified to do so, correct?
I don't believe they've had the appropriate training to perform an autopsy.
Going back into the many qualities of a medical examiner and attributes, they also have to have the ability to form opinions based upon all the available information using the scientific method along with sound reasoning. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the term scientific method?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that the scientific method generally is sort of a systematic pursuit of knowledge that involves recognition and definition of a problem? Is that fair?
Yes.
Is it also involve the collection of data through observation and experimentation where appropriate?
Correct.
Does the scientific method also include the analysis of data?
Yes.
Does the scientific method also include the formulation, evaluation, and testing of hypotheses?
Yes.
And does it also, where possible, include the selection of a final hypothesis after considering other hypotheses?
Correct.
So what we've just discussed is a fair explication, a fair explanation of the scientific method. Correct. And the scientific method is part of the autopsy and forensic pathology analysis, correct?
Correct.
Now, applying one concept, that medical legal concept we talked about, just holding for a moment, if you could, the medical and going to the legal, if you will, law enforcement that you said in Massachusetts is not under your jurisdiction, but nonetheless you consider information arising from it.
Yes.
Are you familiar with a person named Michael Proctor? Is that name familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
And at one time, Michael Proctor was a trooper, correct?
Correct.
And so did former Trooper Proctor inform you of the working law enforcement theory at the time of the investigation of this matter, namely his working theory, a collision of a motor vehicle with a pedestrian? Did he inform you of that?
He informed our office of that, yes.
He informed your office. And is it fair to say that he informed your office or provided that information to your office in or about February of 2022?
That information, part of that information was provided to our office at the time of the autopsy. One of the pieces of information that had come in, and there were multiple sources calling into our office providing information, was that this was a possible person struck by a motor vehicle.
And the time of the autopsy, if I have it correctly, was that around the end of January of 2022?
The autopsy was January 31st.
Your Honor, if I could, with your permission, please publish a photograph which Your Honor has and the parties have stipulated, or that's in evidence. And this is the one. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I show that to the witness?
Okay. All right, so we will mark this as the next exhibit. There's no objections to Brennan?
No objections.
Okay, so we'll mark it first and then you can display it.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Exhibit 163.
Thank you. May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, if I could hand that to you, please. You could take a look at it, and when you've had a fair opportunity to look at it, you can just look back up, and I'll proceed at that time.
Yes, I recognize the picture. Well, I've never seen this picture before, but I know what it's depicting.
Thank you. What is depicted in that picture?
It's a picture of two individuals standing in a morgue setting, which looks very similar to our morgue at the Cape Cod office.
Very good. If you could just hold that for a moment, and with the court's permission, could I publish that for the jury?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? And if you could please zoom in on the two individuals in that picture. Dr. Scordi-Bello, do you recognize any of the individuals in that picture?
To be perfectly honest, no, I don't.
With regard to the person on the right, do you recognize that person?
No, I don't.
And you said you recognized the setting, correct?
Yes.
And you, if I heard you correctly, you said this is the Cape Cod facility?
It appears to be, correct.
Right. So you testified earlier, if I recall correctly, that the autopsy was performed at the Cape Cod facility of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner?
Yes, it was.
And you're normally in, as I recall, the Westfield, in an office that covers Western Massachusetts, and it's Westfield?
Correct.
But you were at the Cape Cod facility, as I understand it, because there was a staff shortage and you had to travel down to Cape Cod for this. Is this correct?
Correct.
So you weren't at your normal home-based sort of facility. This is a facility that you went to for this autopsy, correct?
For this autopsy and multiple others, yes.
Yes. And you were covering a staff shortage, and that was the reason you went to Cape Cod, correct?
Correct.
And what's depicted in this picture are two individuals. For two individuals to be present, is there a protocol that they had to follow to be present for that? Like a sign-in or an authorization?
Yes, there is a sign-in sheet that individuals have to put their name and their shield number and before they can come into the autopsy room.
So they have to put a shield number down, correct? You mentioned a shield number.
Yes.
And does that therefore mean that even though you don't know who they are, that they are with law enforcement? Are you able to determine that?
Correct. I believe they were with law enforcement.
So those two individuals were with law enforcement, but you don't know who they are.
I don't know who they are specifically and what their actual position was.
But they were with law enforcement.
I believe, if my memory serves me right, there was a person from crime scene investigation and someone from state police. But I'm working on a 2+ year memory.
Fair. That's fair. That's fair. I'm not going to ask you more questions to probe the memory. We can take that down. And yeah, we are finished with that. If you could hand that to the, thank you. Now, we were speaking about former Trooper Proctor. Do you recall former Trooper Proctor sending you a copy of scene photographs and wanting to schedule a phone call with you so that he could explain the status of his investigation? Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that occurred approximately in March of 2022?
Yes, approximately.
Right. And the method of communication of that was that by email, to the best of your recollection?
I requested that our medical legal investigator, we have our own investigators at the office that are responsible for obtaining medical records and sometimes being the liaison between us and law enforcement to get reports. I requested that she contact whoever was in charge of the investigation and set up a meeting, a phone call. So since it had already been a few weeks since the autopsy, I wanted to make sure that if there was any additional information that could be provided to me, I could take it into account, because I had 90 days to issue a report and a death certificate on this case.
Now, you've mentioned the 90 days on direct. You just mentioned it now. Is the 90 days a hard and fast rule, or is it just something you aspire to as a matter of good practices?
It's not a hard and fast rule. It's something that as an office we try to achieve. Again, the reason being that there are family members, next of kin that are waiting for these reports and these death certificates for various reasons. So is it possible to go over the 90 days? Absolutely, if necessary. But we do try to finish our part in those 90 days.
So it's possible to go past the 90 days, but there would, given the considerations you just articulated, there'd have to be a pretty good reason why you'd want to do that, right?
Correct.
And in this situation, you concluded that you had sufficient information on the medical side and the legal side to come to the conclusions that you needed to come to. Is that fair?
Well, I had sufficient information on the medical side because I did the autopsy and I had those findings. I did not have sufficient information that pointed to one manner of death over another manner of death, and therefore I stated that the manner of death was undetermined.
Exactly. So the manner of death is undetermined, and I want to, if I could with you, pursue that a little bit in a moment. But
hey, not that, Justin. Good to see you.
Toward the end of that 90-day period, you had information from the law enforcement side on their theory of what had happened, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
I'll let that one stand.
You had performed all of the medical investigation and analysis that you needed to perform, is that correct?
Yes.
There wasn't something more that you wanted to do on the medical side? You had mentioned, to be fair, you had Dr. Stonebridge involved as well. You had what you needed on that side, correct?
Yes.
And you therefore concluded on the manner of death that there was a not more compelling or more likely than other reasonable possibilities. Is that fair?
Yes.
So in furtherance of that, on April 14th of 2022, you issued a death certificate, correct?
Yes.
And please feel free to check your report of any dates or any other particular as I go through.
Okay. I issued my final report on April 14th, correct, and I would assume that the death certificate was on or around that same day.
Thank you. Now, to back up a little bit with regard to the autopsy, as you stated, it was conducted, I just want to do a little bit of a timeline, on January 31st of 2022, correct?
Yes.
And we discussed that the body of Mr. O'Keefe was presented to the Cape Cod location, correct?
Yes.
And you also discussed that you brought Dr. Stonebridge to work with you on this matter, correct?
She didn't physically come to the office. The way Dr. Stonebridge was involved is at the time of autopsy when the brain was removed, having seen that there were injuries, I saved the brain in a special solution, and then the brain was transported to our facility in Boston. That's where Dr. Stonebridge examines the specimens. And after examining the brain, she issued a report.
Who asked Dr. Stonebridge to become involved in the matter?
I did.
And Dr. Stonebridge is triple board certified, correct?
Correct.
She's a forensic pathologist, correct?
Yes.
That means she's achieved board certification in forensic pathology like you?
Objection.
Do you know that?
I do.
I'll allow that.
Yes, she's board certified in forensic pathology.
And she is board certified in general pathology, correct?
Yes.
And she's board certified in neuropathology, correct?
Correct.
Can you briefly describe to the jury what neuropathology is?
Neuropathology is a subset or specific additional training in forensic pathology where the person spends a considerable amount of time, usually 1 to 2 years, examining brains and learning all about the diseases of the brain as well as trauma to the brain.
Now, you asked her to be involved, as you indicated earlier, correct?
Yes.
And you determined that she should be involved because there was a brain injury, correct?
There was trauma to the brain, correct?
Trauma to the brain. Is it a fair characterization that Dr. Stonebridge is sort of the brains of the brain area of autopsy? Is that fair?
I'm going to sustain the objection. Let's move on.
Look, so with regard to Dr. Stonebridge, would you agree that she's really uniquely qualified in some ways? Or how would you describe her qualifications, Dr. Stonebridge?
Sustained.
With regard to Dr. Stonebridge, what did she do?
I'm going to see you at sidebar on this, please.
Okay. This should be allowed, in my opinion, although I'm absolutely not an attorney. But the fact of the matter is, this was something that she testified to on direct examination. That she sent Mr. O'Keefe's brain to this Dr. Stonebridge, and so therefore this should be allowed in. I don't know what Judge Bev's problem is. I don't know what her issue is already. All I can say is it's 11:12 my time, which means it's 12:12 Massachusetts time, and I feel like Bev might be starting to get the afternoon crabbies. We've seen this before. This is not new. This is just part of the brand that is Judge Bev. It's annoying though. Hey, chicken lady, good to see you, babe. Also, she didn't appreciate Mr. Alessi's brain joke, which I found to be hilarious. I don't know, hilarious, but it did give me a bit of a chuckle because he's just trying to, not like Judge Bev, calm down. And now Mr. Brennan is over there complaining because of the line of questioning. A line of questioning, sir, I might remind you that you opened the door to. She's allowed to testify because she read the report. And she used that report and the conclusions from that report in making the determination of the cause and the manner of Mr. O'Keefe's death. So she should be allowed to testify. I don't think she can go too much into it. I think that testimony would be better. Will have to come in from the doctor themselves. But still, the way where he's at with it right now, he's not going over the line. So Judge Bev, let it in. Go sit down, Brennan. Get you a juice box and some crackers. You'll be all right. You're the one that decided this was a good idea to pursue.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scorti-Bello, are you aware of an attorney named, a doctor named Zeke Wolf?
No, I'm not.
Now I'd like to move on to another category. Based on the information that was presented to you as part of your examination and analysis, is it correct that you presume that because Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the snow and his body temperature was 80 degrees, that he died from hypothermia as one of the causes?
I reached that conclusion after performing the autopsy and after seeing some findings that were consistent with hypothermia and then combined with the information that was provided to me about Mr. O'Keefe's body being found in the snow, I came to the conclusion that was one of the things that contributed.
Did you consider whether there may have been other reasons as to why his body reached that temperature of 80 degrees? Sort of applying the scientific method and seeing if there were other reasons?
Other than being out in the snow. No, I did not.
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons, such as sepsis. But in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
You're familiar with the medical phrase differential diagnosis, correct?
Yes.
And a differential diagnosis is a term that's used by doctors to pursue other potential causes of a medical injury. Is that a fair general statement?
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is having difficulty breathing, a doctor may say, I think it's the heart is their primary hypothesis, but they may want to differentially diagnose this and look at the lungs. Is that an example of a differential diagnosis let's look at the lungs to see if that may be the problem? Is that a fair example?
In the example you're giving, yes.
So, applying that concept, and do you believe the concept of, applying that concept to this situation, did you perform a differential diagnosis as to the cause of the death and question whether there was hypothermia as any cause of the death of the decedent? Did you make that analysis?
I looked at the anatomic findings that I had at the time of autopsy, the information that was provided to me based on the circumstances and where the body was found, and I came to the conclusion that there were hypothermic changes in Mr. O'Keefe's body.
So, you just used the phrase hypothermic changes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can there be hypothermic changes without a cause of death being hypothermia?
Yes, of course.
So, you can have signs in the body of hypothermia, but you can also conclude that a cause of death is not from hypothermia, correct?
If the person is deceased and I am examining the body and there are multiple things that I believe contribute to the death, then I tend to include all of them. Meaning that if this was a drug intoxication and the body also showed signs of hypothermia, I would include both of them on the death certificate, because there is no scientific way of teasing out whether it was just one or the other or both. In this particular case, I had two processes that were going on. One was the head trauma, and the other one were these hypothermic changes. I put all that together, and again, included or took into account the investigative information of where the body was found, what the temperature was when the body was found, whether the person was still alive or not, and I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head, and I included the hypothermia because I saw during the autopsy that there were changes consistent with hypothermia.
So I want to break that down a little bit, if I could, with you. So you testified on direct, and I think you alluded to it here, that the primary cause of death, use that phraseology on direct, was blunt force injury. Is that correct?
Blunt impact injuries to the head, yes.
Blunt impact injuries to the head, and that's the primary cause, right?
Correct.
And then there's, and I'm not clear on what you referred to on direct as a secondary cause of death of hypothermia, but you've used a little different phrase in some of your answers, and I want to make sure I got it right. hypothermic considerations. Can you repeat what it was?
It said hypothermic changes.
Hypothermic changes, and we agree that you can have hypothermic changes without a conclusion of hypothermia, correct?
No, hypothermic changes are what I'm referring to are actual things that I can see in the organs that are consistent with hypothermia. They're anatomic findings. They're things I can see with my eyes.
So you can, I'm sorry, did you finish?
And those changes suggest and are consistent with someone being hypothermic.
As you sit here now, with regard to, you used the phraseology consistent with hypothermia, signs of hypothermia, that's what I want to pursue just a little bit with regard to further information. We got started on this by asking whether you used the concept of differential diagnosis and hypotheses to determine the cause and manner of death. And you said in one of your answers that you relied upon law enforcement information, correct? Is that
Yes.
part of it? It was, you brought that up. You're the one who said you relied upon that, correct?
Yes.
And you've brought that up on your direct testimony and earlier in the cross. Is that correct, that you relied upon the investigation of law enforcement? So,
Sustained.
so now what I'd like to do is to ask you whether, using the concepts of differential diagnosis, scientific method, did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe could have died somewhere other than where the body was found and been moved and placed in the snow? Did you consider that?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Move along with this. We can approach in a bit.
Thank you. What, if any, alternative diagnoses did you apply to Mr. O'Keefe?
I don't understand your question.
What alternative scenarios did you look at, if any, for the cause or manner of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I'll allow that question. What, if any?
At the time of the autopsy, I documented injuries and signs of hypothermia. I was provided with a set of circumstances, and at the end of the investigation, or at the end of my timeline, I concluded on the cause, but I did not conclude, or I did not determine a manner. The manner would be the circumstances you are speaking about, whether I considered other causes or circumstances. That's not how it works. I don't come up with hypothetical scenarios on how those injuries occur. I try to state the injuries, describe the injuries, state the cause of death and why that person died, and then I use all kinds of other investigative information that is provided to me to determine if I have enough to make a determination on the manner.
Did anyone provide to you any alternatives as to the finding of the body of Mr. O'Keefe in the snow?
Personally, to me, no.
Did you ask for any alternatives to the nature and location of the injury or death of Mr. O'Keefe?
I asked for all the information that was available.
Understood, but my question is, did you ask for any alternatives to the information that was provided to you as regards the location of the injuries? Did anyone provide you any alternatives to where the injuries could have occurred?
No.
So
I'm going to let the answer stand. So the answer is no, so there's no evidence of that. So next question.
So you talked about the information you had at the time. What time is that?
The information at the time was a preliminary police report and verbal communications regarding the circumstances of how Mr. O'Keefe's body was found.
And when I asked about the time, I'm not calendar time. Was this January, February, March, April of 2022?
The preliminary police report was on the day of the autopsy, and then information, I don't remember exactly how long, but in the weeks following, information was coming in.
Do you have the ability to amend a death certificate?
Yes, I do.
And you can amend a certificate if you obtain further information with regard to the circumstances surrounding the death. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In your previous answers, you were talking about the information you had at the time. And I'm concluding that the latest that would be is April of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you obtained or been provided with further information? In other words, information after April of 2022 regarding the cause or manner of death?
What do you mean, have I been provided? Has someone physically provided me with a report on different circumstances?
Well, what I'm just talking about is any other information that you have received or considered in terms of the analysis with regard to the cause or manner of death.
Received in what way?
Here's what I'll do. I'll be a little more specific. What I want to do is to get at the head injury of the decedent, okay? Is it fair to say that the head injury, you called it a traumatic, state what you phrased that as, because I want to use your phraseology.
Blunt impact injuries of the head.
So blunt impact injuries of the head. Is it fair to say that that was a very severe injury?
It was a severe injury, correct.
And would Mr. O'Keefe had been rendered unconscious nearly instantaneously with death following shortly thereafter?
It's very possible, yes.
Is it more than possible? Is it probable that that's what would have occurred?
I can't tell you how quickly he would have been rendered unconscious, but at some point after that injury, yes, he would have been rendered unconscious.
Is it possible he could have been rendered unconscious immediately?
So she's answered it this way. I think you need another person for that. Let's move on from that, Mr. Lessie.
You made your own determination of the cause of death, correct?
Yes, that's my job.
Understood. And what I want to do is to pursue the basis of your determination. So you used the phrase brain impact injury.
Blunt impact.
A blunt impact, injury. Have I got that correct?
Blunt impact injuries of head, yes.
Of head, right. And that's your conclusion, correct?
Yes.
Based upon your conclusion, did you make any determination as to whether the decedent would be able to carry out any purposeful movement after that injury?
Define purposeful movement.
Sure. I'm talking about the ability to perhaps manipulate their hands.
I don't know.
Did you make any determination as to whether they would be able to engage in any cognitive functions, meaning processing things and making decisions?
I did not make that determination, no.
Did you observe any pattern to the injuries to the head of the decedent?
A pattern? I observed that there were injuries to the back of the head as well as other internal injuries to the base of the skull, as well as the brain.
Your Honor, if we could please publish, I'm just going to check to make sure they're in. If we could, Your Honor, publish 160 that is in evidence. But before we do, Mr. Wolf, I would like to approach Your Honor and let you know in case there's anything further that needs to be done. Thank you. You can show this.
Did you show it to Mr. Brown?
It's already been agreed to as in evidence.
Okay.
And it is in evidence.
Oh, it's in evidence?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if there was any statements that Your Honor wanted to make, and if not.
So why don't you come over here, because why don't you come over side by
All right, now I have a question. Judge Bev, this one's for you. Mr. Alessi started his statement, excuse me, with, it's already in evidence. And you ask, is it already in evidence? Oh, it's already in evidence? Are you listening, Judge Bev? That's my first question. And number two, hold on. Number two, since you're only half listening, how can you make any rulings from that bench of yours if you're only halfway listening? You're sustaining objections, you're telling people to move along, but you're clearly only half listening. I have a tickle in my throat. Hold on. Sky flashed. She needs one of those. Sky flashed says that Judge Bev needs a patio and chair with wheels. I think what you mean. Are you talking about one of those chaise lounge chairs that has the umbrella and the wheels? You know, that you can sit out and drink your cocktail and enjoy the day. I don't know what Judge Bev needs. Judge Bev needs a change in attitude, man. Is it, Lisa? I've actually never seen pictures. I have intentionally avoided looking at pictures because I don't know. Can you, let me see, front row, Jessica Rabbit style bangs hair situation. Are you talking about the one in the white in the white shirt sitting next to the gentleman in the gray suit with the red tie, sky flashed? Vinny, are you seeping? Are you getting tired? Do you need a little 5-hour energy? I'm not exactly sure who that is either. I do notice who's absent from the gallery, and I don't blame them. It looks to me as if Mrs. O'Keefe is not in the gallery, which I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to. This would be tremendously hard testimony to listen to. Now, when we say, does John O'Keefe only have one niece? Is this the niece? Yeah, yes, Crochet. Yes. Can anyone name these people from left to right? Let's do that. Hey, Seven Lilies. Good to see you, babe. Why are we having such a why are we having such a long sidebar? What's going on, Judge Bev? She does, Rachel. She does.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. I got it, babe.
With Your Honor's permission, I would like to publish Exhibit 160.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scorti-Bello, if you could please draw your attention to what is depicted on both screens. Pick whatever screen is most convenient for you. And what I want to do is to go over what is depicted there, and I'd like to start with just some basics. What is that white rectangle that is on the photograph?
This?
Yes.
That's a ruler.
And what's the purpose of the ruler?
To show a scale. When I measure the injury, I use the ruler to document that.
And if you could please draw your further attention to what I will refer to, and you use your own term, but just to start it, the horizontal line that is appears to be a laceration. You know what I'm referring to?
This, yes, this is a laceration.
Right, so it's fair to say that that's a laceration.
Correct.
And just so we get all that's depicted on this, you referred to earlier up above that, the red area, is that an abrasion?
Yes.
And do you also denote to the left almost like a J-type item going vertically up? Yes, and going up. Do you see that?
Yeah, that I did not note that specifically. I just noted the whole injury as part of the abrasion.
That's my point. So you didn't make a separate note of what appears to be a J, and it might be easier to see it in the screen over there. It's your conclusion, but is it easier to see there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and so you didn't make a separate note as to what that was in your report, correct?
No, I did not.
Do you consider that an abrasion or something else?
I believe that's still an abrasion.
Do you conclude that J is different in any manner from the abrasion that you've noted above the laceration?
I believe it could be part of the whole abrasion, or it could be something different.
Fair enough. Would a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground produce a circular and not a linear abrasion as depicted here on the back of an injured person's head?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Assume a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground. Would such a fall and impact present that, perhaps with something like a starfish in the middle?
I'll allow that. Can you answer that?
I can say that a fall backwards could very well produce that injury.
My question is more specific, and that is a fall backwards where the person impacts the back of their head on flat, frozen ground. Would you expect that type of a laceration from that type of a fall? Not just a general fall backwards, but specifically a fall backwards where the back of the head hits flat, frozen ground. Would you expect that?
I could, yes.
And under what circumstances could a laceration like that and an abrasion, all of it together, what circumstances could cause that type from a fall backwards on flat, frozen ground?
Well, the laceration is due to the blunt impact, and so is the abrasion. The abrasion is friction. So depending on the type of surface, you mentioned flat, frozen ground, it's quite possible to have an injury as the one depicted. There's nothing inconsistent with this injury and a fall on someone's on the back of the head with a blunt surface.
Are you familiar with the phrase pattern recognition in medicine?
Yes.
And isn't pattern recognition something that requires training with regard to being able to recognize certain patterns and determining what could be causing that pattern?
Yes.
And just merely recognizing whether there is a pattern takes certain specialty training, etc.?
Correct.
And isn't pattern recognition a principle that you apply in the medical examiner's office?
Yeah, we do.
And so example of pattern recognition could be a knife wound, correct?
Yes.
Could be a gunshot.
Correct.
And there's certain patterns that you see on a decedent that can be consistent with those types of causes of injury, correct?
Correct.
Assuming a fall backwards onto frozen ground and there being on a lawn with grass, would you expect to see any grass at all in the injury site?
It's possible to have grass.
Is it possible to have well, are you familiar with the height and...
No, you guys are not going crazy. The movement and the it's out of sync. I suspect it's done by whoever is the in charge of the feed pool, because of the images that may or may not be projected. And so I think they're worried and they have an extra delay on it. I don't know.
Weight of
So
the
I think I
decedent
could think
generally,
of.
and if you need to look at your notes, please do so.
Yes. Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 6'1" and 216 pounds.
So, assuming a fall backwards and an impact to head on a ground with grass, a person who's 6'1", there is going to be significant acceleration forces that occur as they're going backwards. Is that correct?
That's fair to say, yes.
And therefore, the more acceleration forces, usually there's a correlation with the force of the impact?
Correct.
And in terms of force of impact and assuming grass on the ground, would you, do you believe it's more probable than not that one would then see some grass on the head?
Sustained is that form.
Given what you testified regarding the height of Mr. O'Keefe, and assuming what I just gave to you as a fall backwards and acceleration and forces, would you expect to see anything else on the back of his head?
You have to be more specific than that.
Right. I thank you. So, would you expect to see? Is it possible, if that was the manner of the fall, that there should be grass on the head? Is that possible?
Sustained.
Did you consider at all in your evaluation let me back up. Do you see any evidence of grass in this depiction?
No, I do not.
Did you recall ever seeing any evidence of grass when you were performing the autopsy?
I did not see evidence of grass.
Did you consider at all in performing your autopsy whether or not grass should be present given what was reported to you by law enforcement?
Sustained.
Did you make any considerations at all regarding grass in regard to your autopsy report?
I did not see any grass. No, I did not make any determinations.
And was grass at all even a consideration in your analysis?
I had very limited information as to the exact nature of the surface at the time of autopsy.
So the answer is no to that question? Thank you. Did you have any information regarding the circumstances that you said you look at in trying to determine manner of death as to whether there were any stones or rocks around the scene?
That I did not have any information.
So meaning you didn't have any information, you saw no information that there were any stones or rocks by the scene, is that correct?
Sustained in that form.
What, if any, consideration did you make in your assessment of cause and manner of death with regard to stones or rocks?
I did not make any.
With regard to any other potential causes other than ground, did you consider any other possibilities that could cause the type of injuries that are depicted on the screen?
There's a number of possibilities that could cause the injury.
My question is, did you consider, not whether there are, but whether you considered them at the time you were performing the autopsy?
I'm always considering at the time of autopsy what could have caused a certain injury.
Did you put in your notes or your autopsy report any of those considerations? Are they documented?
No.
Now, in terms of differential diagnosis that we talked about, did you determine whether there were any other possible explanations for the injuries to the decedent other than what law enforcement presented to you?
I'll allow that.
Internally, I consider all kinds of other explanations. I have to look at the findings and the possible ways that those injuries could have been sustained and decide whether I have enough information and whether I am satisfied with the information that I have in order to conclude or determine a manner.
Did you make any notes at all about the considerations you were just speaking about, other considerations? Any notes whatsoever in any document in your autopsy report?
Not in my autopsy report, no.
Did you make any other notes of those considerations in any document that you created for this case at all?
No, these are I've had and discussions I've had with colleagues in terms of evaluating these injuries and
I don't want you to go into what other people said, but I want you to finish your answer.
Right, no, I did not make physical notes of my considerations.
Your Honor, I'm going into a different category, so I just wanted to alert Your Honor to it.
All right. And it will take more than 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, jurors. Well, the lunch is in. We'll take the lunch and recess. So we're seeing about 45 minutes.
Rise to the jury.
Goodbye.
Defense has nothing, Your Honor. Thank you for asking. Thank you.
Hey there, Karen Reed trial watchers. So we know that you're true crime fans, but are you also in a business of some kind? Well, if so, I want to tell you about Odoo. They're sponsoring this live trial stream. So Odoo is an incredible all-in-one business.
I appreciate your effort, Mr. Weber, but I'm good. Thanks. All right, you guys. I think that's where I'm going to leave you today. I'll be back tonight, and we'll go over the second half today. I just need a little break, you guys. I just need a minute. Okay. So I'll see you all tonight. Thank you so much for being here for part one. I appreciate it so very much. If you have not done so, would you please do me a favor and give me a thumbs up, or if you think I deserve a thumbs down, whichever. I leave it to your judgment. I trust you. All right, you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tonight. Bye.